studios. Injured? Call Jed.com. This is the official voice of the Buffalo Sabres. WGR Sports Radio 550. The radio home of the Buffalo Sabres. WGR Sports Radio 550 and WGR550.com. This is a Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update.
Big night for the Buffalo Sabres. The first of their 4-game homestand is a 7-2 win over the Boston Bruins, who have been struggling a lot this year. They still do find themselves in the playoff race, but haven't looked good, and they fall 7-2 to the Sabres. 2 hat tricks, one by Tage Thompson, one by J.J. Peterka. That is the first time the Sabres have had 2 players record a hat trick in the same game since Derek Roy and Drew Stafford in 2008 did it. So the Sabres win by 5. They're next in action Friday, where they'll be hosting the Nashville Predators. Friday night at 7 o'clock before a Sunday afternoon game at 1 against New Jersey. So that's what's next up for the hockey team. To football, we'll hear from Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane later in the week. Some coaching news from around the NFL. The New Orleans Saints are still looking for their head coach. Mike McCarthy was the betting favorite for the job. Tom Pelissero reports McCarthy will not coach in the NFL this season. He will focus on the 2026 hiring cycle. And part of the reason for that is the Saints did not target him as much as he thought they would in their head coach search. Kellen Moore is thought to be the lead candidate right now in New Orleans. Also, Cliff Kingsbury, the offensive coordinator of the Commanders, says he will not interview with the Saints for their job, so it does seem like Kellen Moore is the guy. Speaking of the Commanders, report that the Washington Commanders will seek a new contract for their star receiver Terry McLaurin this summer. He is 30 years old. Thad Lewis, former Bills quarterback, will be interviewing with the Buccaneers for the Texans for their offensive coordinator vacancy. He's been in Tampa as their quarterback coach recently. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Kickoff 2025 with a new Chevy from Paddock.
Nice pass to the middle, scores! Quinn to Thompson, and he hammers it to the back of the net, and the game is tied. Here's a pass across, tic-tac-toe, scores! Tage Thompson finishes that little game of tic-tac-toe, his second of the game. Power leaves it, Peterka's got a lane, scores! What a dart! Thompson moving the night, he's got 2. Scores! He's got 3! Hat trick for Tage Thompson. Let it rain. His 7th hat trick of his career. J.J. Peterka right down the middle. Scores! Nice to see 77 get on a run. Speaking of which, an empty net, and he's parked that one in. And J.J. Peterka putting that one in the net. That is his first career hat trick.
You're listening to Jeremy and Joe on the home of the Sabres. WGR Sports Radio 550.
Hey, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Sabres get 2 hat tricks in the same game.
Yeah. Did you see the list of the other ones?
No, but I can tell you one thing. It's a very random memory, but the last time they had 2 hat tricks in the same game, it was Derek Roy and Drew Stafford.
2008.
What was the date on that?
January 18th.
Okay. If you went to January 19th, 2008, the Sabres went to Toronto and lost. Because I went to Toronto the day after. I was driving to Toronto to watch a Sabres game with my buddies.
Yeah.
And we were listening on the radio as the Sabres absolutely obliterate Atlanta 10-1.
Atlanta. Yep.
And the next night we were in Toronto and they lost to Toronto.
Yep. I didn't remember that one at all. I remembered the previous one, which was Hesh and Pominville in the same game against the Kings in 06. I remember that.
Okay.
That's a 10-0, 10-1 maybe also.
Let's not forget 2 hat tricks in the same game in the playoffs against Philadelphia. That's Pominville and
the Flyers.
Dumont.
Pominville and Dumont in game 2?
Maybe. It's definitely a playoff game. 2 hat tricks.
I think Dumont. And Dumont maybe scores a hat trick in the first period.
Maybe. That's where RJ yells out, Robert Ashe has lost it, I think.
Yes, it's one of my... Oh, it's so good.
So I think that's game 2. That's where, like the Flyers are reeling. It's 2-0 Sabres, and, vibes have never been higher.
Yeah.
So 2 hat tricks, Tage and Peterka.
Yeah, game 2, here it is. Or did they also have hat tricks in the game 6 where they won 7-1?
I don't know.
It wouldn't be possible, right, that they had two.
I don't know.
Pominville and Dumont in game 2.
Look at this. This morning, I could not remember if I let the dog back inside.
But we're thinking about.
But I could remember Pominville and Dumont both had hat tricks in 2008.
Drury had a hat trick in game 6, but nobody else did.
All right. Well, good morning. Sabres got a win. And
Boston stinks.
Stinks.
Wish someone was really capable of taking advantage of it.
You know, like
this team.
Listen, I'm not. It's not a shot at the Sabres. It's just really the reality. I saw a lot of Boston reaction this game.
Yeah.
And it's like when a team lost to the drought era Bills, you would just look the bad Bills, not like
Lossman.
Yeah. And teams would say, like, you know what, we really got to do some soul searching. We just lost to that team.
Yeah.
And that was Boston last night. Boston last night was, this is how bad it is, folks. We just got beaten by the Sabres. It's the Sabres' third win.
7-2.
It's the Sabres' third win against Boston in 26 games.
No, that can't be
right. It's a long time. It's not them.
Really?
Maybe
it's that. I know it's bad.
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. Maybe somebody was making a joke about that when I just ran across the stat.
Okay, in the last 20, it's 17-2-1 for the Bruins, so it maybe not that far off if I expand that out 6 more games.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, it's pretty bad.
So anyway,
yeah,
Thompson and Peterka. We'll dig into a lot of football today. Our guest list. Paul joins us at 7, Paul Hamilton, to talk about last night's game. Joe Marino, the Locked On Bills podcast, at 7:30. Sal, 8:30, and we'll keep rolling. Lots to get to today. The Sabres. What we're looking at with the Sabres right now, the most interesting thing going on with them is the possibility of an Elias Pettersson trade with Vancouver. And I planned on talking about a specific Sabre today in relation to that trade.
Okay.
Before he scored a hat trick last night, and that's Peterka. I would bet Vancouver wants Peterka. Mm-hmm. And I wonder how eager Kevin Adams is to part with Peterka. He is a player that, I don't know, is he not having a similar experience to Pettersson right now where all of a sudden, something doesn't seem right here? I mean, it was certainly right last night. Mm-hmm. They're definitely in different stages of their career. But has Lindy lost Peterka here? When we think about the move they made to hire Lindy Ruff, what players did it work for and what players did it not work for? There's a longer list of players that it has not worked for.
I might have a hard time figuring out who would be on the has worked for list. I mean, Power is still like top 5 in even strength points in the league.
Byram. Maybe it's worked for Byram.
Yeah. Byram's looked really good.
But they don't score nearly where they used to.
No. I mean,
Thompson, he's been hurt. And now he's playing the wing.
But he's scoring. I mean, is he already at the amount of goals he had last season? Like, if he's not there, he's close.
Yep.
He's got 25 goals on the year in 45 games. He had 29 all last season.
Yeah.
So Thompson's returned.
He's back.
But it's a short list. Like, I think I'd want to stop there.
Thompson.
Yeah.
Benson. It's worked for Benson. Benson's on the 4th line start last night.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not a long list. And
Peterka would be on the list of it hasn't progressed. I mean, he's got more here's another one. He's got more assists this year than he had all last year already.
Okay.
But he's not scoring the same way. I mean, now I guess the hat trick will help, get him back to like a 25, 30 goal pace. But he doesn't look that dangerous on a night-to-night basis.
No, last year it looked like multiple times he was their best player. Sometimes it looked like he was their best forward at least. Anyway, the thing that...
But him in the trade.
A trade, yeah.
I mean, sure. I'm at a point where I'd listen to almost anybody.
Anybody for Pettersson?
Like, yeah, sure. Like, you want Benson, you want Peterka, you want Byram. Like, fine. Like, I'm at a point where I can get the best player in a trade. There should be no end, I think, to what you should be willing to give up. You've got to get this deal to home plate.
Last time the Sabres did that, it was when they acquired Kane. O'Reilly.
The last time they got, those two.
The best player in a trade, they trade for Brandon
Montour that one time.
Yeah, that's right. And Brendan Gooley in a first.
Yeah.
But in like a multiplayer trade.
But not one that's even on this level. Like, when's the last time they would have traded for a player that was the best player or the best forward on his team?
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Like, this is a 100-point player. One time he was a 100-point player. 3 straight 30-goal seasons. If you go look at, like, the most points in the league in the last 3 years, 5 years. Like he's top 20 at least, top 15 maybe even. So like it's a player you don't get your hands on.
Yeah.
This franchise does not get their hands on.
No,
ever.
it's one of the reasons that tanking was, of course, something they did.
Right.
Because you can't get guys like this unless you sell off a bunch of assets. You certainly can't get them in free agency.
So like Peterka, like they would be. That's the deal with a trade like that, right? Like, is you are gonna have to swallow hard and really live with. Man, I'm giving up what to get him, especially when guys got no trade protection. This isn't not 3 teams bidding that he's willing to go to. It might be 20 teams that are making calls and willing to offer something. I don't know. So, not everyone could fit $11.6 million cap hit. Peterka, like it would be tough. But if you told me he's in the deal, I'm like, fine.
Yeah.
Part of that though is where they're at, right? Like,
well, it's another
part of that is like they're so bad and they're so uninteresting that just I don't want to say like a whatever attitude, but that's kind of where I'm at. Like, you want to throw these 4 things in whatever. Like, there's almost nothing I feel like I would be upset about leaving behind. Almost nothing.
Who's the head coach next year? Is it Lindy?
Seth Appert.
Who's the GM next year? Is it Kevin Adams? Like, these are other
Jason
things.
Karmanos.
These are other things that you kind of, I don't know, you would treat as if you don't really know them.
Correct.
And would there be changes this offseason? If they finish 28th, which is very much in the cards, is it a situation where you clean house? Is Kevin Adams entrusted to trade for Elias Pettersson right before being taken out of the job he's in? Is he elevated and somebody else is the GM? Is it about Lindy's system, Seth Appert's system? Not to try and borrow ideas from the Bills here, but a Joe Brady offense works differently than a Ken Dorsey offense, works differently than a Brian Daboll offense, and on and on and on. Who fits and who doesn't? And there really is nothing else the Sabres should be considering right now other than how do we get back to being good next year? I mean, it stinks. Hi, Bills fans. If you used to think hockey season starts when football season ends, I got news for you. Hockey season kind of ended when they lost 13 in a row. They are still 5 points back of the 9th place wild card team. Mm-hmm. They are 10th in the wild card, not 10th in the standings, 10th in the wild card, behind a lot of teams. And the playoffs are it's the ship has sailed. So, it's about what are you going to do? Deadline, sell pieces. You're going to sell off Jason Zucker.
And Greenway is a free agent.
Right.
And, I mean, they have to decide something on Byram at some point. I mean, there's a decision looming on that, and he's good.
I would imagine he's not eager to sign, and if he does, it'll be the Reinhardt scenario where he doesn't want to sign long term. Like, I'm going to leave.
I'll sign a 1-year deal, and then you can walk me to UFA. Yep. Like that could be something he does.
The one thing they have working for them in the Pettersson conversation is he's really tight friends with Dahlin. So
Patterson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, if they're good friends or friends, then that does work a little bit.
And if Vancouver is interested in Byram and he's got a contract coming up, I mean, might work in their favor that he's basically from there.
Yes.
Not basically, like he's from 2 hours away or something, yeah. Abbotsford.
And he's an RFA, so,
Cousins is too. Well, Cousins is from Whitehorse, but he moved to the Vancouver area when he was a teenager to play junior hockey.
Well,
so both guys are very familiar with the area, which is maybe why they've been connected to it.
Right.
So you're right. They scored 2 hat tricks last night. That is the thing I'm thinking about with them more than anything. Is can they get a trade like that done? Can this GM get a trade like that done when everything's cleared out for you? All right, he's friends with your captain, your best player. He's a number 1 center. He's 26. He's under contract for 7 more years. He has no trade protection. You've got all this stockpile of young pieces still. There's no reason this deal shouldn't get done. There's no reason they shouldn't get this deal done, other than the way they conduct themselves, right?
Yes, that has to be a part of it. One thing I would immediately ask is, okay, how much does he make?
The cap hits $11.6 million, and he's due a huge bonus this summer.
Okay, and how many years?
Till 2032.
Okay, so
7 years.
You're requiring $70 million in salary, roughly.
Yep.
Okay, you're going to have to find a way to make that make sense for the owner, because
he has a $10 million signing bonus due in July 1st.
Okay, are you ready for the beginning of? That's more of a deal for the summer, and Vancouver pays that $10 million and then trades him. I mean, The Sabres are right.
Well, the problem, though, is if you wait till that, then his trade protection kicks in, and then he can tell you, I'm not going to Buffalo.
All right, well, there you go. Ryan O'Reilly got traded before a bonus kicked in, right? Famously had to go before he got paid. So dollars and cents, of course, do matter in this conversation. Mm-hmm. And for Pettersson, you want to acquire $80 million in guaranteed salary. I think that's only happening if you are sending out, close to $80 million in guaranteed salary. And that's not that's not Byram. That is Cousins, about half of that, right? $7 million a year for Cousins.
Yeah.
But Byram is not that. Byram is conceptual money. It would have to be, my guess is, for the Sabres and the way they operate right now, it might have to be dollars in, dollars out. And the cap, by the way,
would it have to be even, or would they be willing to say, okay, if it's Cousins and Byram, we treat that as, okay, if Cousins is half, then maybe we feel like we're giving up, we're trading for a $6 million player, not 12, because we're giving you a guy who makes 7.
Sure.
Then maybe they'd be more willing to do it because it's like we're acquiring a $6 million player, and we'll do that.
That's right. And then I think they would have to shed the rest of the difference. They bought out Jeff Skinner and did not replace that salary. And I thought the entire time the reason they bought out Jeff Skinner was to save $14 million of cash. That's it. Let's save $14 million on actual salary. It's not about cap space. This team, I don't think this team is really worried about cap space. Kevin Adams says, I don't think about the cap.
Yeah.
Probably because it doesn't come up. They're not near the cap ceiling, and they don't really show much appetite to do it. So I would imagine that if they're going to bring in nearly $12 million in salary, you're going to need at least 10 going out. And again, it's not even just cap hit. It's what you would acquire guaranteed money. Well, $80 million guaranteed.
Yeah. The other thing, I know this is cap hit and this isn't the point you're making, but the most recent report was, okay, maybe the 97 figure that was out there was a little higher than it ended up being. That would be more like 92, 93. If it ends up being like $93 million, that puts the Sabres $32 million under the cap. They would have to the floor will be somewhere. They will be forced to spend
something.
15.
Okay.
So, and you could do 5 of that if you want with their Boychuk, Ben Bishop move, but they're not going to do all of that with that, right? Like, if $7 million extra of the 15 you might have to spend just to reach the floor is, we can upgrade and get a number 1 center. I don't know. I want to convince myself that they'd be willing to write the check, but I would be skeptical also, especially because it's right there up front. It's $10 million on July 1st. Right away. But I want to believe they. Come on, what are we doing here? Are we in the NHL or are we not in the NHL?
Yeah. 803-0550. If you have a thought on this, you can throw it our way. Just kicking around the Sabres this morning. Good for Tage. Good for Peterka.
Tage had a good season. Should be on Team USA.
He
for
should.
This tournament coming up.
He should.
He's in back check enough, I guess.
Right. Team USA trying to build a real team and all that. They're the
favorites.
The Four Nations starts soon.
Yeah, February 15th, I believe. And the U.S. is favored, and I have to believe that's the first time they've ever been favored in a major best-on-best hockey tournament.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. That'll be fun.
Well, that'll be a nice distraction in February. Meanwhile, the deadline approaches. The Sabres got a win, and that's nice. But, here we are.
Friday is Rob Ray's Hall of Fame ceremony, right?
Yes.
Cool.
And Rob will join us Friday morning, 8 o'clock.
Nice.
To chat about it. I saw Rob at a game recently. I was down there, said hi to him, and said hi to Mr. Dan Dunleavy before a game. Might have been before the Pittsburgh game a couple weeks ago. Anyway, whatever. Yeah, so Rob's going in the Sabres Hall of Fame, and,
into that, that'll be...
Yeah, sure.
There's not much else to do here, right? That'll be a cool night. I'm glad there is one on the schedule, because otherwise, getting up for these games is I had my goal for the year, doing a podcast about this team, whatever, was just get me to the spring and have it feel like I'm still having interesting hockey games. And that was dead by December. Right?
Yeah.
It's been gone for a month now. They're 5 points back of second last. They are 12 points back of a playoff spot. that is currently occupied by Tampa, by the way. Ottawa, I guess, has thrust themselves into the top 3. Must be nice. And meanwhile, like all these teams that are having that year, like Montreal, Columbus, and Ottawa.
Yep.
Come on.
Well,
that's not making it feel any better.
I don't know.
These teams were behind you and have not only jumped you, but they've jumped. Ottawa's jumped Tampa and Boston for the time being.
Right. We dream of the Bills getting by the Chiefs, and we also dreamed of the Sabres having the season Ottawa is currently having, which is third in the division.
Right.
Yeah. Well, good for those teams. The thing about this season for the Sabres is this, too. It's another year where the GM, which it happens a lot, not just this GM, Bottrell did this, of course, he just watched it all happen, and nothing ever changed. They didn't do a thing anywhere along the way. Right?
They brought in like a third-line center.
Right.
Like that's the most you get. Your bottom 6. You try to correct your problems with. I mean that goes back. How far?
No, I mean during the season.
Oh, during the season. Yeah.
During the season.
Oh yeah, no, sorry, then that isn't their.
No, they did nothing. They did nothing. He just watched it happen.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that you know, now imagine you watch a franchise for years and years and years, watch seasons like this happen and not make moves. Like they did fire Ralph Kruger way back when, and I'm not sitting here telling you.
Well, that took how many losses
it
in a row?
It took 12 in a row. The Sabres, meanwhile, lost 13 in a row this year. Not to say that firing Lindy would have made a difference or should have been the right move, but any sort of move. This organization didn't make any move. And it's, to me, they're defined by their inaction very often. And I don't know if I should take seriously the idea of, well, now it's time for action, and what they're going to do is trade for Elias Pettersson, one of the best players in the league. Like, to me, that it seems like when you bring that up, when you say that, someone might say to you, are you kidding me? All they really do is like to hoard prospects. They're going to give away these players that they've developed or they're happy about for one guy, when the whole concept of, you know, trading away Eichel was to get as many picks and prospects as possible. And some of these other, I mean, they've been about picks and prospects for, well, a decade since the tank. And they've developed some pretty good players, and then, you know, they go somewhere else. So, I don't know. Does it sound
No, you're right.
Does it sound ridiculous when we say, sure, get in the Pettersson sweepstakes? I mean, the NHL insiders do consistently report that they're in them, and they're one of the most interested teams.
There was one last night that was like they've been in it since the start, and they'll be in it till the end.
Okay.
But even what is that? Like, am I just trying? Are you just trying to get credit for being like in it? Like, hey guys, no, we wanted them. Like, because that's not enough. That's a participation trophy. It's not even a participation trophy.
I don't know if it's Drager or if it's Friedman, but one of them will say, and one of them I've heard them say on podcasts, something about the Sabres, and if I'm wrong about that, Kevin Adams will call and tell me I am. Like, that Kevin Adams is in contact with one of those two somewhat regularly. So, right, to be included in those rumors, that's what I mean. Am I Charlie Brown trying to kick a football here and Lucy's going to pull it away? Because all that's really happening is the Sabres are being given a little bit of credit by us for being in something like this. How believable is it? I mean, you just laid out how much it actually would make sense for them, because
I can't. There's no idea that would make more sense.
They need to check 10 boxes in order to make a deal, and this checks most of them. Some of those boxes are like a guy can't say no.
Yeah, right.
Like,
that's my jumping off point.
Like, that's like the biggest check. So they all those boxes check. I don't know.
You know, it's a good idea when the biggest negative that you hear is that he's European and he isn't like a strong leader or whatever.
Okay.
Like, because that's actually the criticism that it's been in Vancouver, is like he got challenged by a teammate and he didn't react well to it. Like, okay, that's why you're trading a 100-point player? Send him over.
It is mysterious what's going on over there.
It's very strange. Rutherford, the president, yesterday, like, who admits in public, they're like, oh yeah, we've got locker room problems. Like, he just went on the radio yesterday and like confirmed that. Like, fine, I appreciate the honesty, but like, you didn't even try to hide it a little bit. I mean, it's very strange.
Around here, it's been suggested multiple times the Sabres don't bring in big salaries because they're afraid it would upset the locker room. Would they be upset if an $11 million player came in?
I mean, they shouldn't be upset by anything at this point, right? I've looked through 15 years of Sabre trades, by the way, just scrolling through looking for a type of trade that you're talking about. Like, you know, at least a month before the deadline. You know, not like a deadline trade. The last time they've like made a real trade, I mean, like in like during the season as it's going, like not going well, we got to do something. I mean, because the Eichel trade isn't that. Like the time of that trade is November, but that's not what that is. They traded Vanek away, but that's selling, right? Like that's not what we're talking about. Like you got a bunch of these little like last year. Do you remember the move they made last year in December? Nobody does. Eric Robinson?
No.
In December for there's a bunch of those. They have not made a trade like we're talking about, like between the start of the season and like a month before the deadline to help the season along in like, I mean, it's at least 15 years, it looks like. Briere, maybe.
Right. And even then, he was not exactly like a star in the league at that point.
Yeah.
803-0550. There you go. Sabres win.
They won 7-2.
They won 7-2. And we'll see if they want to do anything about it. I'm not sure, that changes things. But I wonder about Peterka as the name. And we've done this in the past. Who's the one guy you wouldn't part with? And I feel like everybody's answer would be, I don't care. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter. My question would be, who's in charge and who's deciding a build? Pettersson's the kind of player that would be included in most builds. Apparently, though, not Vancouver's. Jeremy and Joe, you can give us a call on that if you want. 803-0550, 1-888-550-2550. Paul Hamilton at 7 o'clock on last night's win and on these rumors, how seriously he takes them. I have often referred to Paul as Wet Blanket Paul. So, sometimes he tells us to keep your expectations in check. We'll see if he does that in this case, too. 803-0550. It's Jeremy and Joe. Snow is coming in today. It's 6:30 right now, and I saw from Pat Hammer a little bit ago some heavy snow coming in this morning, maybe around 7:30 or 8:30. Gusty winds, low visibility. So a band of heavy snow heading for this area, western New York. We'll try to find specifically where in the break here and give you more information. But prepare for that. Potentially heavy winds and heavy snow heading for the area about 7:30 this morning.
Just call Jed Studios. Injured? Call Jed.com. WGR Sports Radio 550. The radio home of the Buffalo Sabres. WGR Sports Radio 550 and WGR550.com. This is a Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update.
Sabres win 7-2 last night over the Boston Bruins. Dueling hat tricks by Tage Thompson and J.J. Peterka. It's the first time that two Sabres have had a hat trick in a game since Drew Stafford and Derek Roy did it in January of 2008. Sabres win by 5, still bottom of the standings, 5 points back of second last, but win to start their 4-game homestand. Next up, Nashville on Friday at 7 o'clock. The football news from yesterday involving coaching news, including in New Orleans. The Saints are looking for their head coach. It won't be Mike McCarthy. Tom Pelissero reports that McCarthy will not coach in the NFL in 25, that he did not get the interest from New Orleans he thought he would, and that he'll be focusing on the 2026 cycle. Kellen Moore is now thought, the offensive coordinator of Philadelphia, is thought to be the favorite for the Saints job, as Cliff Kingsbury in Washington also said that he is not going to interview for the Saints job and that he is focusing on Washington. Speaking of the Commanders, a report from Ben Standing of The Athletic that Washington will seek a new extension for McLaurin this summer at 30 years old. Browns general manager Andrew Berry said yesterday that he will not trade Myles Garrett this summer, although Garrett kind of implied earlier in the year that he might want to, so we'll see how that goes. Those are your Paddock Chevrolet Sports headlines. Kick off 2025 with a new Chevy from Paddock.
Call or text WGR at 803-0550 or post on X at WGR550 and get connected to Jeremy and Joe now. Brought to you by Northtown Kia. Check out the 2025 Kia K4 sedan. Named finalist for the 2025 North American Car of the Year.
Thompson moving the night. He's got 2. Scores! He's got 3! Hat trick for Tage Thompson. Let it rain. His 7th hat trick of his career.
All right. That's one of the Firth moments of the game. For the moments in your life, go Forth to Firth, brought to you by Firth Jewelers. Question. You know how when you're an NFL official and you see a penalty, you throw a flag, and then you see another penalty, you throw your hat?
Yeah.
What happens if you're at a hockey game and there's a hat trick? You throw your hat. Then there's a second hat trick. What do you throw?
You throw a sock on the ice.
I'll take it.
Although nobody wants your dirty sock.
Shoe.
On the ice.
And you don't want to walk around with one shoe.
Yeah, that's worse.
Like, were there hats left for Peterka? Actually, you know what? It's probably like the circle of life or the food chain. The 300-level hats that came down to the 100 level for Thompson's hat trick.
Yeah, you save those.
Maybe you picked it up. You're like, you know what? I'll just take this lost and found after the game. Then Peterka gets the hat trick. You're like, you know what? Actually, now I get to throw this one too.
Yeah.
2 hat tricks for the Sabres in their win over Boston. We'll talk about it with Paul coming up at 7 o'clock today. Good morning. Jeremy and Joe, 803-0550, 1-888-550-2550 on the Sabres, and whatever, Elias Pettersson rumors if you want, or their win over Boston last night, you can have it. It's a win on the first game of a homestand. Yeah.
That's good.
Yes.
Nashville next, and then there's a 1 o'clock Sunday.
1 o'clock Sunday.
1 o'clock Sunday against the Devils. There you go.
Revenge
Tailgate
game.
it.
Revenge game for Lindy.
Revenge for Prague.
What have you spent your time looking up when it comes to like Bills, Chiefs stuff? Anything? Salary cap, free agency, anything like that?
I would say, honestly, it's more of just defeatist attitude of like lists of athletes that have as many, appearances that in championships in a certain amount of time as Mahomes and the Chiefs do. Like
right.
it's
what's the most wins one side had over another in a 10-year span?
That's another one.
Of someone that's still good. Like, not Brady over the Bills during the drought, but...
Sure, I looked up, like...
Is this Federer or Nadal or Nadal?
I looked up Federer and Nadal. I looked up, like, how dominant... The Warriors and the Rockets met, like, every year in their playoffs.
Yep.
While the Warriors dynasty was going on. Houston never beat them. Just stuff like that. And then also looking for, like, did they ever do it? Did they ever do it once? And a lot of those outcomes or situations they did. Like Nadal beat Federer, No, well, Nadal beat Federer a lot. For that one, it's more the other way around. I mean, the Rockets never beat the Warriors, though. The Colts beat the Patriots, so it does happen. I'm just trying to work to a historical context of, all right, at some point it has to happen. At some point more so, they can't just every year be this, right? Mahomes has never, in his 7-year career, not made the AFC Championship.
Yeah.
That can't be forever. It's just, right? Math won't let that happen. Like, the odds of him going his whole career without ever losing earlier than the AFC Championship game, but what do I need for that to happen? So I started going down that road and just like, am I at a point now where to believe the Bills will ever make the Super Bowl, they can't play the Chiefs? I need somebody to upset them. I need somebody to get lucky. I need, a team like the Texans to play them in the second round and get 2 fumble recoveries for touchdowns. Just 1 year up. Dumb luck. That team got lucky and they're out, and now I'm playing Houston in the AFC Championship, and now I'm going to the Super Bowl. Like, that's my attention's been more, do I have to start treating this rivalry like the Bills with Allen will never make it unless they get a year where they don't have to play the Chiefs?
It does feel
which has
like
not happened yet.
It does feel like this year the obituary is a little bit more about the Chiefs and how they are an inevitable force, right? 13 seconds, they're not a dynasty yet. It's you blew it to a great team.
Yep.
Last year, you missed a kick, and you had some drops, and you blew it against a weakened version of that great team. And now, they did go – they lost 1 game this year to the Bills.
They've lost 23 of 24 games. Or, excuse me, they've won 23 of their last 24
Not
games.
counting that Denver game.
Not counting the Denver
They lost 1 game, and it was to the Bills.
Yeah.
So – I know you don't get a banner for that, and you don't get any way to feel any better about it, but nobody beats them. Nobody. Except you do sometimes.
Well, you do in the regular season.
Yeah, and that's not – it's not like they're not trying in those games. They are trying in those games.
They are. Are they, though – is there ever more proof that the Chiefs are not showing things in those meetings?
There might not be.
They are on board with, if we lose this game, fine.
Sure.
Like, we are not running our best plays against you to win this football game. We don't care enough about it.
But even if that's true, that beats everybody else.
True.
Right?
Right.
Oh, they're not even trying. They don't try. They beat everybody else.
Right.
They give 1/10 of 1% less than 100 against you, and you do beat them. Consistently. Mm-hmm. The Bills haven't beat them 2 out of 7 years in the regular season. It's every year. All the time.
Mm-hmm.
Here and there. So I just feel like a little bit of this postscript on this game is now, okay, we are living in the time of a dynasty. And this is where I would ask if there's any sort of shift. Maybe Brandon Beane will ask him this in the offseason. Maybe somebody will ask him this whenever they do speak for the end-of-season press conference, Beane and McDermott, which could happen later this week. The question I would have is when you made the Worthy trade, this is not a point about the Worthy trade, we can discuss that separately. You said you don't really look at the other team, you do what's best for you.
Yeah.
Would anybody push back on the idea that the Bills should, of course, focus on what the Chiefs do? Shouldn't the Bills' offseason be spent, among other things, scouting anything that gives Steve Spagnuolo problems? What is the thing that gives them a problem? What is the thing I can do that makes his life tougher, where he feels not comfortable to throw me a 4th and 5 blitz that AI technology does not even recognize? Mm-hmm. What can I do to make his life harder? Because I don't think his life was all that hard against the Bills. He has a freak show quarterback to deal with in Josh Allen. Josh Allen makes his job hard. And past that, the Bills' offensive line and their run game might have made it a little hard. But what can I do to make it harder on Spagnuolo? And, of course, the flip side of that is, what do I need defensively to give Sean McDermott to get any results? Tyler Dunn, I read his piece about the Bills and this loss, and he included a stat in here that I should have teased it over the course of a break, but whatever, just to have you guys hanging on pins and needles. He pointed out that Mahomes in the playoffs against the Bills, his points per drive,
yeah,
to give you context, earlier this season, the Bills were averaging 3 points per drive on offense.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 points per drive was like, over the course of a season, that's 2007 undefeated Patriots offense. That's Lions offense this year, too, I think, for a good stretch.
Mm-hmm.
Points per drive, 3. Patrick Mahomes' points per drive in the playoffs against the Bills is 4. 4.1.
Mm-hmm.
They're
averaging more than a field goal.
Yeah. More than a field goal per possession. So that's where you get to.
You're just never getting
You could
stops.
do whatever you can against Spagnuolo, but you're going to need stops. And I do think
That means they're scoring a touchdown more than you're getting them to punt.
Yes, that's right. 4.1
insane.
points per drive. So I don't know what your answer is, because I don't think there's changes coming at head coach, of course. But what's the answer? Because Mahomes, I think I have fallen into this trap. I have done this, Joe, where, well, Mahomes is too good. You can't expect to stop him. But Brett Coleman, he of the Bootleg Football Podcast and Underdog Fantasy, he does extensive film stuff. Brett Coleman is, in terms of, football nerd people that I respect as high as I could, Brett Coleman's on the list. And he tweeted yesterday, I mean, it really might be time for someone else other than McDermott, because Mahomes is going to get his. Everyone understands that. You can't possibly be this bad against him.
Mm-hmm.
It's not okay. It's not okay to be this bad against him in those spots, because 4 points per drive is out of this world bad against him.
Mm-hmm. And the only way to do that is to get another coach. Maybe. Or if because that's not happening.
I don't think that's happening. But is it?
So
is it
what's
just
their answer? Is their answer that we are? I mean, that's where I start to worry about what their offensive identity would be in that matchup. Like specifically, I wonder if they regret not running the ball more with James Cook in the first half, because they think that's the way to do it. Maybe they're defeatist about it too, and thinking, well, we're never going to stop Mahomes in the playoffs. So how do we limit it? We limit it by we do Super Bowl 25 Giants playbook. We're going to run the ball a ton and eat the clock and not let Mahomes on the field. And they tried that last year, and they didn't win. But like, if that's the reality, I wonder what their approach is then. Other than, I guess, you just make the roster as good as possible. That's the only way that happens then, right? Isn't the only way then, if that's true, that they ever get a hold of Mahomes in the playoffs, is their roster is like the best in the league on defense. That they've got a Myles Garrett level pass rusher. They've got an incredible secondary. They've got their line. Like everything has to be perfect roster wise.
But then you might wonder, do they have the scheme in that game to do it? Or will Mahomes have the answer for everything they do? Will Reed have the answer for everything? Gina, hang on. We'll get a call on the other side. We're up against break. Josh in my ear already. He does that sometimes. Watching Sabres highlights on SportsCenter. 7 goals last night. Give us a ring on the Sabres. Or, of course, we'll start talking about Bills-Chiefs a little more, and the Bills turning the page. I've got a pass rusher idea. Are we doing pass rusher idea of the day?
Ooh, maybe.
Might be a conversation.
Are there enough of them?
I don't think so. We're going to try. We're going to try. It's Jeremy and Joe here on WGR. Sabres win over Boston, and also some trade chatter that's out there. Gina in Delaware is up. Hey, Gina. Good morning.
Hey. Yeah. Well, morning, guys. I got to tell you, first of all, thanks for allowing me to express my love and passion for the Bills every season. Like, I've reached people that I haven't spoken to forever because you allow me to express my love and passion for the Bills. So this is what I want to tell you all. I actually took off Monday because either I was going to celebrate alone
or mourn.
Or I was going, and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like, let me tell you, no joke. Like, sometimes I got to wonder, like, what is going on with my brain with these Bills? Because don't forget, guys, I'm older than dirt. And I've been through those 4 Super Bowls in a row and the losses. So it's PTSD right now, true PTSD. So when that game ended, I literally did my own locker room cleanup, went on the deck where all my special happenings happen on the deck, sang Mr. Brightside, literally, because I sang Mr. Brightside the whole last week. I mean, Destiny is calling me was going to be my sweatshirt. Well, guys, oh my God, really? 0-4? 0-4? You know what? You know what you need to do for the off season? You need to sleep and breathe. How do we beat Spags?
Yeah.
What do we do to beat Spags? Are you kidding me? All I can see in my visuals since the loss is how Patrick Mahomes runs. I mean, that will be forever burned in my brain until next year because the dude really can't run, but he ran against us. What is up with that?
Mm-hmm.
I love my Bills. Thank you for the ride. Josh Allen, I've watched that post interview several times. You want to cry for him. You see how gassed he is. I can't imagine the weight of the world that dude has on his shoulders. But I've told y'all before, with your crown came nothing. He's our king. And if we can't do anything with our king, where are we going, guys? So I'm just going to leave you with thank you. I love all my fans, I just call them my fans, my friends, my people that I haven't spoken to forever. And go Bills. But we got to do something, guys. We can't let this happen again and again. First it was Miami. Then it was the Patriots. And now the Chiefs? No way. And, guys, guess what? Puppy Bowl for me. Go Bills.
Puppy Bowl, yeah. Thanks, Gina. I wonder about the ratings, if the Super Bowl will dip a bit. Bills-Chiefs is the highest-rated AFC Championship game of all time.
Yeah.
I wonder if Chiefs fatigue would ever hit the Super Bowl. I'm happy to bring up this idea about, the league fixing it for the Chiefs. Nick Wright said something yesterday that was right. He was correct. Brings me no joy to tell you he was right about something. Again, he can be right sometimes. 803-0550. We'll get some more phone calls. We'll mix in Paul Hamilton on the Sabres game last night and their path from here as we cruise through. Snow showing up about 7:30 today. Heavy snow, heavy winds. Jeremy and Joe here on WGR.
Hotline.
Happy to welcome our man, Ross Tucker.
Al Michaels with us, pleased as always to be joined by Eric Wood.
On the Wester Hotline is Buffalo Bills General Manager Brandon Beane.
When the players call, when the coaches call, when the insiders call, the West Her Hotline, brought to you by the West Her Automotive Group. Welcome to West Her, New York. Sports Radio 550 WGR Buffalo and WKSE HD2 Niagara Falls, Buffalo, 98.5 FM.
An Odyssey sports station.
Broadcasting live from the Just Call Jed studios. Injured? Call Jed.com. This is the official voice of the Buffalo Sabres. WGR Sports Radio 550. The radio home of the Buffalo Sabres. WGR Sports Radio 550 and WGR550.com. This is a Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update.
Big night for the Buffalo Sabres, a 7-2 win over the Boston Bruins. 2 hat tricks by Tage Thompson and J.J. Peterka. The first time since 2008 when Derek Roy and Drew Stafford did it, the Sabres have had 2 players with a hat trick in the same game. Thompson gets to 25 goals on the year, Peterka at 14 on the season. Boston still in a playoff spot, but they have definitely had some poor outings this season. That was one of them yesterday. The Sabres are next in action on Friday, hosting Nashville at 7 o'clock. Still 3 games to go on this homestand. So Nashville on Friday, then New Jersey on Sunday. Nicholas Aube-Kubel clears waivers yesterday for the Sabres. He'll be sent down to Rochester. To football. The Saints are still looking for their head coach. They're the one vacancy left. And Mike McCarthy was the betting favorite, but no longer. Tom Pelissero reports McCarthy will not coach in the NFL in 2025. He will focus on the 2026 hiring cycle. McCarthy reportedly was surprised at the lack of interest from New Orleans on his part. The Saints are considered to be looking at Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore is the favorite, according to Ian Rappaport, at this time, as Cliff Kingsbury in Washington also said yesterday that he is not going to interview for the Saints job. He's going to stay as the Commanders' offensive coordinator. Some other news, former Bills quarterback Thad Lewis is in the running for the Texans' offensive coordinator job. He's been the QB coach in Tampa Bay. Terry McLaurin in Washington. He's got a contract expiring soon, and the Commanders, according to Ben Standing of The Athletic, are looking to extend McLaurin this offseason. He is 30 years old, or going into his age 30 year. And Andrew Berry, the Browns GM, said he is not going to trade Myles Garrett. This offseason, he wants Garrett to retire a Brown. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Kickoff 2025 with the new Chevy from Paddock.
It's Paul Hamilton.
That's what they called me in college, was the bone.
He has the facts to back up his opinions.
People ask me, well, how are the Sabres going to, are they going to win tonight? I don't have a clue.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
And a good Wednesday morning. Jeremy and Joe with you. Paul Hamilton joining us as we talk about last night's Sabres win and a juicy rumor that's out there. We'll see if Wet Blanket Hamilton comes in and tells us it's not going to happen. Paul, I've referred to you as that before because, I tend to get a little excited about things and you come in and say, like, easy. But, I need that sometimes. Paul's appearance brought to you by Raylax Honda. Raylax, we got this. Joe Marino, Locked On Bills podcast coming up 7:30 to dig back into, that matchup. Paul, how are you handling the Bills loss?
Hey, it is what it is. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I didn't expect it. So,
yeah.
I mean, it happens, and it keeps happening, and the Chiefs are the Chiefs.
The Chiefs are the Chiefs. It is what it is. Mm-hmm. Man, the tone shift there, Paul. You thought you were not thinking they would win?
No.
Just because of the consistent matchup of their guy, the coaches?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just feel Andy Reid and his staff are quite a bit better when it comes to everything.
Yeah.
For in a football game than Sean McDermott and his staff, and they've proven it time and time again, and they proved it again in this game.
I do wonder, Paul, that I feel like that was not the general attitude of Bills fans going into Sunday, and I'll admit I got to a place where I was very confident that they would win the game. I bet, After 4 times now,
it's acceptance now.
I'm betting the next time they meet, it'll be more where you were at, I think.
You know, and a lot of people, well, the Chiefs were lucky this year. No. Yeah, there's a certain amount of luck, I suppose, in winning at times. But no, they won a lot of close games, and at the end of games because they're a really good team and they're champions, and that's what champions do. And they figure it out. And, you know, the Chiefs in games where people thought they were lucky, it's like, well, they're not going to be lucky every week. I mean, they are a good football team. They have a good coaching staff. They have, you know, we know what they have. I don't have to go over it. And, you know, that's why they win, because they're a good football team, and they figure it out, and they've figured it out for years.
Paul Hamilton joining us here as we shift gears. We hadn't talked to Paul since the loss for the Bills. So, Paul, the Sabres last night got a win over Boston, a team that has had, by its standards, a pretty rough year. And they jump on Boston, 2 hat tricks from Tage Thompson and J.J. Peterka. A nice night at the arena, one that was probably much needed. Yeah, and there was a lot to like. I mean, this was a game where it was, if something went wrong, Luukkonen bailed them out with a great save. Or if Luukkonen needed a puck cleared for a rebound, they were there to do that. So they helped each other. You know, when one fell, the other was there. And you saw that throughout the game where, you know, they were in sync as a team, something that, you know, we don't see a lot of at times. You know, if one's there, the other isn't. Or, but you know, Luukkonen had to make some great saves in that game, and you know, none better when Owen Power blew a tire, and next thing you know, it's 2-on-0 the other way, and Luukkonen comes across the crease and makes a phenomenal save on a 2-on-0. I mean, just things like that, and you know, so and the other thing was, yeah, Boston scored 2 goals, and one came in the third period to make the score 4-2, and you know, the natural thought, you know, we've seen this movie before, but there was never that by the team. There was never a time where I thought to myself, they're in trouble. And even when Marchand made it 4-2, scoring the power play goal, I didn't feel they were in trouble. And in the past, sometimes that would put them in trouble. But both times that happened, they scored in less than a minute. You know, it happened where they fell behind 1-0 in the first period, and boom, they tied on the Thompson goal. And it was one of those goals that you like because they get up ice fast, and Byram leads the attack. He's within the attack. Fast break up the ice. Here they come. And it's just Byram to Peterka to Cousins. Thompson's in the middle, and they get it to him. And that's 54 seconds after the Bruins have scored, and Thompson rips it home, and now you have it. And then the Marchand goal makes it 4-2. And next thing you know, Peterka's coming up ice with speed like he was shot out of a cannon. He split the defense, goes in, scores. That was 30 seconds after Marchand scored. So, and Ruff talked about how he felt that he could feel the bench being lifted, you know, when that happened in both times, where, you know, he never felt either that they were in trouble, or they were saying or they were going, well, we better not make a mistake or anything like that. They went for it. And, you know, that's what you have to do. And in this particular game, they did it. Paul, one thing that's different, I mean, Thompson and Peterka both have hat tricks. Yuri Kulik has been playing with Thompson, and Thompson's now on the wing. And, you know, the waving of Nicolas Aube-Kubel, like, Kulik has arrived. Are we done? Right? Is he done down there? This whole draft all these guys, who can show up, who can be here. Is Kulik ready now?
Yeah, he seems like it. But of the guys who are prospects who now have become part of the team, he spent more time in Rochester than any of them did.
Yeah.
You know, he spent over 100 games down in the American Hockey League, you know, and preparing himself. And I don't think he got rushed up. There were times this year I thought maybe he got rushed up a little bit, but it seems like he's got it now. And Ruff moving him to center is one of the things, because they found that out in Rochester. He started at wing. He was fine. He wasn't awful, when he was 18 years old and got here. He had to learn, but it wasn't. But once Rochester put him at center, he was a whole different player. And same thing, he got up here. They didn't have room at center, and Ruff decided, I want to see him at center. I really liked him in the prospects tournament when Ruff was here watching him, and he wanted to give it a shot. I agree. Why not? What do you got to lose? So he did it. And, Kulik has become a better player by doing that. And, you have a line that scored, 9 points as a line. Mm-hmm. It's kind of funny. Thompson scored 3 goals, and he did it with a different center all 3 times because they got caught in a change. And McLeod was out there one time because he was the only one in the change so far. Kulik went to the bench. McLeod got out there. He assisted on one. And the first one, Cousins was out there because of a change. And he assisted on one. And then Kulik assisted on one, as a center. So you don't see that very often either, where, a guy gets a hat trick with 3 different centers.
Yeah, put their seasons into context now, Paul, after the hat tricks last night. Thompson, the positional thing has been interesting, but he's returned to the goal scoring of a few years ago. I mean, he's already only 4 off what he had all of last year, and that's just in goals. And then Peterka, I've been kind of back and forth on his year because there were stretches and nights where he just looked kind of easy to defend, where he's at the wall and you just put a stick in the lane and it goes away. But, I mean, now with the hat trick, the goal total doesn't look that bad, and he's already got more assists than he ever has. So how would you put his season into context as well?
You described it perfectly. I think exactly what you said. You've seen it, and but now here he is in his last 4 games. He has 4 goals and 3 assists. His last 22 games, not necessarily. I mean, he had half of his in the last 22 games. He got half of his goals yesterday. In his last 22 games, he has 6 goals, but he does have 16 assists. So he does have 22 points in 22 games. It's just the goals haven't come. So he still, has to really improve his defensive game. There tends to be games where the awareness isn't there, and the next thing you know, the puck's in the net. So, those types of things have to improve. And Thompson, too. I think Thompson has really worked at his game and has improved. I think he's not there yet. I think he still needs to improve defensively at times, but he's on a pace now. I wrote it down in my notes, and my notes are still in my bag. I didn't grab them. It's about a 46-goal pace, somewhere in there.
I looked up, it's 45 points, whatever. So, yeah, it's basically round up to 46 on the year.
Yeah. So, and Peterka, he's around 23, I believe.
Okay.
He's on a pace for around 23. So
that's not bad.
Yeah, he had 28 last year. I was kind of thinking, because he was one of the guys who got better last year. There weren't too many of them. He was. His production got quite a bit better than the year before at 28. So I'm thinking, well, maybe he can score 30, and maybe he can. I'm not saying he can't. Goal scorers tend to be streaky, and he's only halfway there now, but it's only January, too. So, he could get on a hot streak as a goal scorer and maybe get close to 30. But in order to be the player that I think they want him to be, he has to improve his awareness a lot, and he has to improve his defensive play.
Paul Hamilton joining us as we chat about the Sabres. Paul, we could talk about this team right now. We've done this in the past. Like, who would you not part ways with? There's a big trade rumor out there, a report about Elias Pettersson being moved and the Sabres being involved from start to finish. Before we get to the Pettersson part of it, I kind of wonder where the organization is from a standpoint of, will Kevin Adams be the GM? Will Lindy Ruff be the head coach next year? Because as they're trying to build a roster that can make the playoffs, I'm going to go ahead and say next year, they have to identify certain things. So if you're looking at the core and starting there, like, who would you part with? Who would you not part with? There's a number of players that are extended for long contracts. There's a number of probably pretty good-looking prospects. Like, they have players that other teams would be interested in. Where does it start and finish for you on who stays? And is there anybody really on that list?
You know what? I don't know if I'd hang up the phone. If somebody called, I would at least listen to what they have to say. I mean, but there are some players. You said Kulik. I'm not looking to trade him. Wouldn't be real excited to do it. It would take a lot to do it, but I wouldn't sit here and say, well, no, I'm not. Well, tell me what you got in mind. And unless if you're in some cases like him, you're going to have to really knock my socks off to to come up with something. But that doesn't mean that can't happen. I mean, I understand the thought process if you're thinking of Dylan Cousins and you're thinking, well, he could go somewhere and really become a great hockey player, and we're really nervous about that. But you have Kulik, you have a guy who they really, really like, who they just drafted in Hellenius, who they have already said is a centerman. He's going to play center. So even if that were to happen, let's say you make this trade that you're talking about, and Cousins has to be a part of it to make it. And then it's like, well, yeah, but what if he becomes a really, really good player for Vancouver? Well, you got to give something up. If you're going to get a player who has had 100 points in this season, in this league, and is only 26 years old, and has been a 30-goal scorer for the last 3 years, you got to give something up. And you may have to give up Power or Byram too. Now, if it were me, if it's like, all right, here's the deal. I would be pushing more towards Power than Byram, and I'm not saying that because I don't think Power can become a very good defenseman. The jury's out on Power. Whether he can become what they feel he can. He's too young to make that decision right now. But again, if that's what it takes, I think there are nights Byram is better than Dahlin. I've really been impressed by him. He's won a Stanley Cup. He's not a guy that gets too flustered, when from what I've seen, the way he plays. So if I had to pick between the two, now he's a 4th overall pick. He's not that old. I'd rather keep him. If I want to make this trade, let's say it comes up, and I want to make this trade, and I want to get a guy who, has the resume of the guy your top 6 forward who can put the puck in the net. He's a centerman, so now you got him, and you got Kulik, and you got Hellenius, and maybe Thompson is going to be on the wing in that case. Maybe Kulik and
you have options at least, though.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Right.
Well, it seems like is a big picture here. The idea of Elias Petterssons, who we're talking about here, $11 million player, that you think it might make sense for them to make this kind of move.
I told you before, the only reservation I have is, this is a team that mentally is soft. I've never seen a team as soft mentally as this group on a whole. And that's after a 7-2 win. That you sound like an idiot saying that, but
well, they're feeling good today.
Yeah, I think you know what I'm saying here. And he and JT Miller have been at it, and he does not like the way JT Miller operates, who is old school. He's going to bust chops. He's going to get in your face if he doesn't think you're doing what you should be doing. And apparently he didn't react well to that, and he hasn't had a good season. Neither one of them have, actually, as far as, what they normally do. So that would be the only thing where I'd be thinking, geez, I got guys like that. Can he get over that? Is that just this? Or is that the way he is, type of a thing? That would be the only thing I would be worried about as far as a guy who can be that top 6 forward that we're talking about who can score goals and help you become better offensively, there's no question in my mind.
Yeah, because in terms of the talent, Paul, like, am I overstating it? Like, aren't you kind of making the Eichel trade in reverse, where you are giving up? That's where, when you made a good point about, like, if Cousins goes to Vancouver, which, by the way, like, he moved there when he was a teenager, so that might make sense for him geographically. I mean, Tuck became a better player here after the Eichel trade, and is Vegas worried about that? Like, they want a cup, so obviously not. But
Right.
Like, if Cousins goes and becomes a 30-goal scorer, but Pettersson is here scoring 90 points a season, then, like, it's just good for Cousins. Like, nobody's upset about that, I don't think. But do you think I'm overstating Pettersson as a talent in that he is on the Eichel level, like, where he's not one of these McDavid, McKinnon, best center in the league, but he might be in that next tier of, like, the really good number one centers?
I don't know if he's quite as good as Eichel, but Eichel was good here, and he's he was still young when he got traded, so you have to assume he's still going to get better, and he has. So that's no surprise to me. But he was good here. I think Eichel is a better player, but I don't think Pettersson is that much behind him. So yeah, that's the type of player you would be getting, the type of player you don't have. And I would think if he plays up to his potential and not plays like he is this year might just be an outlier to him. And he might perk up, if he gets a trade, and he's very, very good friends with Rasmus Dahlin. Right. I tweeted out a picture a couple of years ago. They were on the red carpet together, up for the Calder Trophy. And I remember interviewing both of them, and, you could just tell what good friends they are and how much they get along and how much they hung out with each other. So, I don't know, at least coming here, just like when Byram got here, he had been friends since they were kids with Cousins and Krebs. I mean, they've known each other since they were like 11 years old. In Cousins' case, I think it was before that. So he was like ecstatic to come to be with his friends. And I think that would be a case here where, I don't know what he would think about coming in Buffalo in general with the way the team is, but he certainly would enjoy being here with Rasmus Dahlin.
Paul Hamilton, as we wrap up on last night's game and, look to a potential big trade. Thank you, Paul.
No problem.
I mean, there's no wet blanket this time. You're maybe not fuel to the fire, but I'm just saying, like you're.
Well, you know how I am with rumors.
That's right.
They rarely happen. The one that happened, I think, was Derek Roy. I think we heard about that, and it happened.
Yeah.
And other than that, very, very rarely do the rumors, happen the way you hear them.
But you feel like they could make this trade?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I believe that discussions have been had. So I definitely think that.
Okay.
When Kevin Adams says, and I totally believe him, that he'll call on people just to get the lay of the land. He might not even be a player he's interested in, but he wants to hear about it and he wants to talk about it because he wants to get the lay of the land to see, all right, what is this? What are people talking about with this player? What would it cost to get that player? And so as far as conversations, and also I can tell you he is not shopping Dylan Cousins. But if somebody picks up the phone and asks about him, I don't think he hangs up.
Yeah.
I think it's like, okay, what do you got in mind? I'm not really crazy about trading him, but what do you got in mind? And we'll listen about it, and he should listen about it. That absolutely should be the way he should be.
Paul Hamilton joining us. Thanks, Paul.
Yep.
Paul Hamilton's appearance brought to you by Raylax Honda. Raylax, we got this. We'll call that trade chatter the eye on the blue and gold. It's brought to you by Great Lakes Building Systems. We keep an eye on your business so you don't have to. Great Lakes Building Systems, our business is protecting your business. We shift our eyes back to the blue and red and white, the Bills. Joe Marino, Locked On Bills podcast, joins us when we return. Get his thoughts on, well, what happened. And I know through our conversations with Joe, the thing he was always concerned about, the Bills defensively in the playoffs against Mahomes. It happened again. So what's the path forward? We'll talk about that, get his thoughts on, breaking down all the film, all that, and chat about it. Joe Marino coming up next here on WGR.
Jed Studios. Injured? Call Jed.com. WGR Sports Radio 550. The official voice of the Buffalo Bills. WGR Sports Radio 550 and WGR550.com. This is a Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update.
Sabres win 7-2. Dueling hat tricks by J.J. Peterka and Tage Thompson. The first duo hat trick game for the Sabres since Stafford and Roy did it in 2008. It's been a long time on that. Sabres win by 5. Next up, Nashville on Friday at 7 o'clock. The news in the NFL yesterday mostly about the New Orleans Saints head coach vacancy, which not a lot of people seem to want. Mike McCarthy pulling out of that job. He is going to take 2025 off and focus on 2026. Cliff Kingsbury said he's not going to interview for that job. Offensive coordinator of the Commanders. He'll stick in Washington. Joe Brady obviously already pulled out. So right now, Kellen Moore is reportedly the favorite to be the Saints' next head coach, offensive coordinator of Philadelphia. So maybe that job waits till after the Super Bowl. Thad Lewis, former Bills quarterback, in the running for offensive coordinator of the Houston Texans. They fired Bobby Slowick earlier in the offseason. And the Commanders are also looking to extend Terry McLaurin this offseason, according to the Athletics' Ben Standig. 30 years old, McLaurin will need a new deal next year. Those are your Paddock Chevrolet Sports headlines. Kick off 2025 with a new Chevy from Paddock.
Call or text WGR at 803-0550 or post on X at WGR550 and get connected to Jeremy and Joe now. Brought to you by Northtown Kia. Check out the 2025 Kia K4 sedan. Named finalist for the 2025 North American Car of the Year.
Nice to see 77 get on a run. Speaking of which, an empty net, and he's parked that one in. And J.J. Peterka putting that one in the net. That is his first career hat trick.
One of the Firth moments of the game brought to you by Firth Jewelers. For the moments in your life, go forth to Firth.
I mean, we could always do better. Their very first play of the game was a quick RPO, and that was you could tell. I mean, from that that was their game plan. They knew they couldn't protect against us in straight up pass protection. They dominated with RPOs and all that kind of stuff, and kept us on our toes.
A.J. Epinesa. It's one way to say it, right? They knew they couldn't pass protect us against us. So RPO was the thing.
Although when they needed to later in the game,
they definitely did.
Kind of did. I mean, I don't.
Mahomes
maybe Kansas City did that. No, I don't buy that. I don't buy that. They just played Will Anderson and Daniel Hunter. They were afraid of Greg Rousseau and A.J. Epinesa. Like, I'm not saying the Bills couldn't have won that matchup. The Chiefs' line has had a down year, but that makes it sound like they were afraid of the Bills' D-line, and that is not a defensive line. It's a fine defensive line. It's just not one I would ever be terrified of.
I was looking at PFF grades yesterday.
Yeah.
Jeremy and Joe, good morning. PFF grades of the Bills' defense. And, how do they look at defensive edge and defensive tackle and in the secondary? And I think one thing we should fully expect from this team is a complete, maybe not complete, but an overhaul in the secondary. Just going on
the secondary.
Secondary, yeah. Just going on rankings. We'll see about Cole Bishop. I don't know that Cole Bishop is going to be plan A for them. But I've got two names for you that can't be plan A, and they're one on each side of the ball. And that is Amari Cooper and Rasul Douglas cannot be plan A. Neither one can be plan A for them. Can they come back in the right scenario? Sure.
Like Douglas competing with like a rookie, maybe. Like if they let's say they use their first round pick on a corner. Would that make sense for them? Hey, you want to come back on a 1-year deal and compete with the first round guy?
Maybe. Let me give you the
depth.
Let me give you the rankings. According to Pro Football Focus, their defensive back rankings.
Okay.
Christian Benford, they ranked by grade, and you don't have to love Pro Football Focus. I think they're pretty decently respected. It may not be perfect, but here are the rankings. Christian Benford ranked their 6th best corner in football. Right?
Awesome. Great.
Yeah, Christian Benford, 6. The next highest bill, 58th, Kyer Elam. Now, that's probably sample size. Is that also going to be quality of competition? Whatever. Taron Johnson, 84. Rasul Douglas, 101. Yikes. Now on to safety. Their highest rated safety, the Bills' highest graded safety this season, with The 46th best safety was Cam Lewis.
Ooh.
74.
And a lot of those weren't even at safety. They would have been nickel. Right?
74, Taylor Rapp.
Okay.
85, DeMar Hamlin, Cole Bishop, 86. You did not have a secondary. You really didn't. And
you had one great corner.
One great corner, and
then everything else
and
was
the rest
guys.
of it was just kind of holding it together.
Yeah.
So
that's tough.
It's a defense that, listen, if they didn't punch the ball out as often as they did, which was number 1 in fumbles per drive, the story of this season would have been, I mean, Josh Allen actually might have won the MVP because he would have had to score 15 more touchdowns.
Right, yeah.
So,
but that was evident on when they ran more man, especially in that first half, and their guys just couldn't cover. And that's without Benford on the field. Maybe Benford would have started playing better than he did on that first drive because
on the first drive he had a breakup of the Hollywood Brown play.
Yeah, like Elam got a lot of the attention, rightfully so. I mean, he was a disaster, I thought, in that game. But Douglas got beat one-on-one by Juju Smith-Schuster with a degenerative knee problem. And Hamlin was getting beat by guys all night.
Yep.
And listen, when you're playing man and you're blitzing, Hamlin, one of your safeties has to come down and cover. So when that becomes DeMar Hamlin, like he's fine if you want to play zone and he's in the right spot and he's a good tackler. But if you need DeMar Hamlin to man-on-man somebody, I think one of the Worthy touchdowns, he got switched on to Worthy.
Oh, yeah, and that's never going to work.
I mean, that Mahomes at the line of scrimmage is probably laughing. He's like, I know this is I haven't even snapped this ball yet. I know this is going to be a touchdown. And it was the easiest touchdown ever. I mean, Hamlin is one they will replace on. I mean, maybe it's Bishop. Maybe you're right. Maybe they go out and get somebody else. They'll at least be more athletic at that spot. I would totally. Maybe this makes it sound in my head, even though I'm team receiver train all the way through, that I feel like Douglas is the more important replacement than Cooper.
Well, neither can be plan A. I've got some stuff on Cooper for you later, too. I was just digging around Pro Football Focus, just looking at grades, and, they watch the whole league, and I don't. And I don't think that they're out here to trash Bills players. They have Benford as number 6, if I take that as real. Anyway.
Yeah, which sounds right, by the way. Benford seemed like he had a great year all the way through, not watching all these plays where he's not getting targeted. But often in these games, Douglas was the one getting targeted.
And this is going to be nitpicky, and I'll accept it. You can't force all those fumbles downfield from your secondary without allowing players to get the ball downfield on your secondary, right? An interception is taking it away in pass coverage. Punching it out is making up for it once they've got it. And I think you could pass on this Bills defense a lot, more than years past. I saw some numbers on EPA for McDermott that they often, very regularly, have top defenses. In his 9 years, they've been in the top 5 or 6, 4 or 5 times. Kevin Cole had numbers on this about how good their defense is. Top half defense in EPA per play every McDermott season. So every season, McDermott defenses are above average.
Yeah.
4 times they've been a top 6 defense. Now, that does not solve the playoff problem. That doesn't do it.
Right.
Because think about that. 4 times a top 6 defense, and you've never gotten past Kansas City with one of those either. So there are bigger issues to talk about, but I would anticipate that we are talking about 2 new starters in the secondary at least. And I wonder how long Taron Johnson has left. Taron Johnson, all of a sudden, he's getting hurt a lot.
Yeah.
If they are a team that is base nickel, is that not one of their primary things they're looking for right now? Is Taron Johnson's replacement? Don't do what you did with Diggs, which was he goes and nobody's ready to step in.
Right.
Who is it that's going to step in as their next nickel corner?
Well, Johnson's not that yet because contract-wise it doesn't work out. But in 1 year, you already can look at the contract.
Start to prepare. 803-0550. Joe on a cell phone. Hey, Joe.
Hey, guys. Good morning. I finally got through, and I was just calling in regards to the 2 topics you're talking on, obviously the Bills' disheartening loss and then the Sabres' win last night. First, obviously, 58 years old, lifelong Bills fan at the age of 4 back in the rock pile days at War Memorial, season ticket holder for the last 5 years with the team. My thought going forward, obviously, I don't believe Von Miller will be back, and I'm thinking on the other side, I really had high hopes for A.J. Espinoza when he came out of Iowa as far as his play and his ability to attack the passer. And I know he had, I believe, 5 sacks maybe this year. However, he was another. He'll show up and then he's a no-show in these games. And I don't know going forward what his role is going to be. I mean, he's in maybe his 6th year now with us. I'm not sure, but I'm not too keen on keeping or doing something with him. And then with the Sabres, obviously, we get hard. All season I've had these super minute highs where they win a game and they look like we're going to turn the corner. And now we're 50 games into the season and we're 12 points out of Columbus still with 32 games left. And I'm an optimistic, and I'm like, okay, they look good, they won, and then I get my heart involved in this team, and then down the line we get 3 more losses in a row, etc. I will be at the Rob Ray induction game tomorrow, which is going to be the super coolest part of being there.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the Nashville game itself, they should win. But give me your calm thoughts, guys. Just thinking about,
all right, so
as usual.
On Vaughn. So to follow up, thanks, Joe, for this. On the follow-up about PFF grades, Vaughn did not have a bad year, according to them.
Mm-hmm.
He was their highest-rated defensive end. Now, he didn't play that much, right?
He played very specific third downs.
He had limited snaps. And I wonder if Vaughn is a definite he's going to go. They can save $8 million on the cap if they cut him, but there's a restructure.
Yeah.
They can save $10 million if they restructure it properly. And listen, if they think his veteran presence is good enough, his comment was he wants to come back. And he said as long as his key card works, he's going to come back. He wants to come back. So if they think veteran presence, Hall of Fame defensive end, Hall of Fame edge guy, and we're going to draft some young kids, and we can save 10 if we restructure. And I know that pushing salary cap stuff down the road because of restructures is generally viewed as, well, you're going to have to pay that price eventually. That's true. Every year the cap goes up like $40 million. So an $8 million cap hit this year and a $10 million cap hit next year are like the same. There's inflation with everything. Inflation with receiver salaries, inflation with quarterback salaries. Wow. So, it's kind of the spot where, wow, the biggest dead cap hit in league history. That's right. That's going to continue to happen with more and more players when they get bought out. So I think Vaughn could be a restructure candidate.
I'm actually stunned to see, like you just mentioned, the grade. The thing I trust the most when it comes to pass rushers, the number that I like the most is the pass rush win rate number. He had an 18.4% win rate. This year, Vaughn did. That was 8th best in football.
He doesn't play a lot, so if they get him in obvious pass rushing situations, can keep him on the team. If they think
he had 249 rushes. I mean, the guys in front of him 445, 344 right. Though. Like there's other guys in here that are around the same. Like, But right, Bryce Huff, you mentioned him yesterday, right? He needs a contract. He only had 189 rushes on the year, and he had a lower win rate than Vaughn did. So Vaughn, man, like that's an efficient. Way more efficient than it felt like.
And didn't we just go over the fact that the Bills in the secondary just weren't that good? Like, their back seven. Yeah. Orlovsky on One Bills Live yesterday said the back seven needs more help. The line, of course, needs some. But
it would still have to be cheap, I think, for Vaughn, though.
Well, if you just restructure, if I save 8 cutting him and save 10 restructuring him.
If he'll do the restructure, then I would do that.
Restructure. And maybe you keep him because, well, we only have so many jobs, and I don't know who I can get in the draft. So I wouldn't close the door on that just yet. 803-0550, 1-888-550-2550. Also, I mean, like, Douglas can't be Plan A. Plan A is free agency. Plan A is the draft.
I feel like Bishop is going to be Plan A, though, at safety.
He very well could be.
I think he's – I'm not out – if there's a star out there that wants to come here, maybe they would do that. But second-round rookie that they seemingly never planned on playing in the first place in year one, like – did he play so poorly that if their plan was we'll slow play him year one and then he'll start year two, what happened this year for him personally that would have gotten in the way of that? Like, to me, not enough.
I would say look at the history of how quickly they're willing to give up on second-round picks. It's Cody Ford.
He started, though, for a couple
started,
years.
And then they decided we'll move on.
They didn't give up on him before playing him.
Okay. Boogie Basham.
They gave up on before they really played him. I mean, he played a little, but he wasn't.
And they decided, you know what, it's not the right fit. and they got a good look at Bishop in practice. And the fact that he never played until he had to is something.
But isn't that what the plan was, right?
I don't know. I think the plan would be
Mike Edwards.
You draft him and you hope he's great. Right? Mike Edwards, they signed to play, and he didn't play because he wasn't good enough. And Bishop, wouldn't they have loved him to play?
But that's what when they draft him. Well, we'll get to a break because we have 6 months to debate if Cole Bishop's going to start next year.
Yeah, great. 803-0550. Jump on if you want to. We got plenty of time. We're a couple of open segments here. Yeah, good times. Jeremy and Joe on WGR.
Time for building a better strategy for the Sabres, presented by salesrebel.ai. Build better strategies. Visit salesrebel.ai today to learn more. We talked about a lot about Elias Pettersson today, looking up some of his numbers on evolving hockey. Goals above replacement. Offensively, he's in the 93rd percentile. This is over the last 3 years. Defensively, he's in the 79th percentile, which overall puts him in the 97th percentile amongst all forwards.
So you should probably get that guy if you can.
For comparison, Jack Eichel is in the 95th percentile. So I feel like they are like on the same. I think they're like the same level of player.
All right.
So it'd be nice to get him.
Good to know. Improving the strategy for the Sabres. They won. To follow up on the one caller said, like, it's confusing. Sometimes they look good and sometimes they look bad. Let me tell you, golfers who have a handicap of 25 do birdie holes occasionally.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about here. The Sabres have 15 regulation wins in 50 games.
You're not supposed to birdie every hole because you shoot 100 and you got a birdie.
I'm reminded of the time that they were supposed to finish in last and they did. You know, I had a rant that I still remember where someone was mad they lost 7-0. It's like they're in last place. They're supposed to lose 7-0 sometimes. They're also supposed to win 7-2 sometimes. Like it's not unusual for a team that's bad to win a game.
There's 82 games. They're going to win some.
They're going to win some. And maybe they'll win a couple more. They're on a homestand here, with a couple more coming up. 803-0550, we have an open segment when we get back. When we return, I do want to talk about Cooper. You posted something about Amari Cooper, and we'll have to decide how good it was and how he was deployed. So that's coming up. And as part of that, I'll mention the name of someone that did beat Steve Spagnuolo in the AFC Championship game. And he's available in free agency. So that's coming up next.
More of West Her Hotline.
Very excited to be joined by Greg Rousseau of the Bills on the West Her Hotline. Ray Davis, Bills rookie running back here on the West Her Hotline.
The coaches call the West Her Hotline.
Sean McDermott, head coach of the Bills, joins us on the West Her Hotline.
The insiders call the West Her Hotline.
Happy to welcome our man, Ross Tucker.
Al Michaels with us, pleased as always to be joined by Eric Wood.
On the West Her Hotline is Buffalo Bills General Manager Brandon Beane.
When the players call, when the coaches call, when the insiders call, the West Her Hotline. Brought to you by the West Her Automotive Group. Welcome to West Her, New York. Sports Radio 550 WGR Buffalo and WKSE HD2 Niagara Falls, Buffalo, 98.5 FM.
An Odyssey sports station.
Broadcasting live from the Just Call Jed studios. Injured? Call Jed.com. This is the official voice of the Buffalo Bills. WGR Sports Radio 550. The official voice of the Buffalo Bills. WGR Sports Radio 550 and WGR550.com. This is a Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update.
Sabres win big over the Bruins last night in the first of their 4-game homestand. A 7-2 final. 2 hat-tricks, one by Tage Thompson, one by J.J. Peterka. It's the first game where the Sabres have had 2 hat-tricks in the same night since 2008 when Derek Roy and Drew Stafford did it against the Atlanta Thrashers. So the Sabres get the win. They will next be in action on Friday night hosting the Nashville Predators. Rob Ray will be inducted into the Sabres Hall of Fame that night. So it should be a cool night at the arena. To football. A lot of the news yesterday was about coaching news on the New Orleans Saints. That's the one vacancy left. Joe Brady already pulled his name out of consideration for that job. Now Mike McCarthy is doing the same. McCarthy reportedly wasn't getting the interest from New Orleans that he thought, so Tom Pelissero reports McCarthy's focusing on next year's hiring cycle instead of the Saints job right now. Cliff Kingsbury says that he is not going to interview for the Saints job either, so right now it is viewed as Eagles offensive coordinator Kellen Moore's job to lose. Other news from around the league, Myles Garrett has started some trade rumors on his own at the end of the season. Andrew Berry, the Cleveland GM, told reporters yesterday that he wants Garrett to retire a Brown and he does not want to trade him this off season. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Kick off 2025 with a new Chevy from Paddock.
Impact the game. In the skill group, you want to consistently push the envelope on that.
Speaking of wagons or large moving vehicles like trains, the wide receiver train, I think, keeps running.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's go. We're back, baby. Choo-choo. Listen, Joe, could you do me a favor? For the feed, would you grab that large item that's leaning up against the wall over there? Would you please grab that for me?
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
You know what? You might say that...
We got to get Jalen Polk's name on.
Listen, this is going to save me some money because I don't have to get a new wide receiver big board. Yeah, there it is. Let's get new names. The big board's back. Now, listen. Couple things. Jeremy and Joe, good morning. Yeah, rip all those names off. Get how Jalen Polk, whatever. All those names are off.
Jalen Polk.
A lot of names down there.
Troy Franklin.
Yeah, that didn't do much.
Gone.
Who else down there that didn't do much?
Adonai Mitchell.
You know, from what I understand, A.D. Mitchell was open all the time, but just didn't get the ball.
Javon Baker.
Not good.
Where even is he?
New England.
Out.
Rip him off.
Devontae Walker.
Nah, nothing.
Off
Ravens.
the list.
Yep.
And Roman Wilson.
Nothing. Yeah.
Who put Roman Wilson on this list?
We made it was a big board. It didn't say wide receiver small board. It was a big board. So, a couple things on this. One, you know it's draft season It's not even draft season. I'm sorry for saying that. I apologize. Good morning, Jeremy Joe. It's not draft season. Draft chatter is picking up. When you mention a position and someone responds via the many ways people can respond to us with, I can't believe you guys don't see that they need, and then talks about another position, that's how you know we're getting to the draft. You mentioned, they're probably going to need another receiver. How could you ignore the defensive line? Like, well, friend, this is not you have to declare like you're picking a college. You don't have only one thing you're going to get. Anyway, heard Dan Orlovsky say that yesterday. Heard Shope say that yesterday. Wide receiver train's back. The big board is back. That's great. I mean, it's great news. We're going to get some new names up there. I don't have any yet for you.
I mean, because there really aren't any.
I do have a couple for you.
Free agency will come first. Isaiah Bond?
Isaiah Bond, maybe.
He's got an injury, though, doesn't he?
He does. We got some names.
There's really no wide receiver other than T. Higgins that makes sense for, like, instant improvement on the outside. Like, the guys available. Have you looked at the list?
Chris Godwin
slot. Coming off an injury.
Yep.
And he plays Shakir's role, really.
Yep.
Diggs, which...
funny. The Bills can do the funniest thing ever.
It would be hilarious. Keenan Allen,
right.
Slot. Cooper, we've talked about him. Brandon Cooks.
All right, we're about to talk about
Deontay
Cooper.
Johnson, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Williams, Robert Woods, Marquise Brown. Maybe that's one. There's just not really. There's not really a guy.
Well, all right. So on Amari Cooper. Good morning, Jeremy and Joe. You can give us a ring on anything Bills for that matter. And it's funny because we know they have to find a way to stop the Chiefs. And that feels like that involves multiple pieces. And I don't know, Sean McDermott to get answers to Andy Reid, because right now it is an absolute bloodbath when they play against each other. We mentioned the numbers. The Chiefs in the playoffs against the Bills average 4 points per drive, which is all-time great offense. And Mahomes is great, but he doesn't do that against everybody. He just does it against the Bills every time. And the fact that Mahomes scores more against the Bills than other teams is probably somehow related to the Bills score more against the Chiefs. But Andy Reid kind of probably knows no matter how many points Josh Allen's going to get, I'm going to get more. I'm going to get whatever I need. And I thought about that as I drift away from the Cooper point that we'll get back to. I thought about that with the 4th and 5 blitz. Maybe this AFC Championship game goes down as like the Spags blitz. He gambles on that play. And someone wrote to me on Twitter a really good point, which when I first read it, I thought, come on, that's ridiculous. And then I read it one more time and thought, actually, you know what? If you were a defensive coordinator and on the other side, you had a guy in Patrick Mahomes who has gone 7 for 7 in the playoffs with the ball in a need-to-score drive in the fourth quarter. He has never not done it.
Right.
13 seconds is one of those times. When he needs a field goal or a touchdown and the game's on the line, he is 7 for 7. And Joe wrote to me, I believe on 4th and 5, Kansas City's plan was do something crazy to stop us. And if they did get beat, have it be a huge play, so we'll just give the ball back to Pat. The first time I read that, I thought, get out of here. And the second time I read it, I thought, if you're Spags, you'd say 50-50. I am the hero, or my guy bails me out like he has done every time in his entire career.
And that's what he did, isn't it?
That's what he did.
It's what he did.
He bet, if I don't get there, I bet my quarterback's going to go do the job anyway.
Right.
Mahomes had a 99th percentile drop-back success rate. It is one of the things that, like, it's built in. You have Mahomes doing the job on the other side, so Spagnuolo can play like a crazy person.
Yeah. And get plays like that.
Yep.
Where he stops. It's the coach. It's the defensive reaction to how your offense is rather than the other way around, which we've seen the Bills do the other thing, right?
Which
Like,
is,
I'm not saying they did that on Sunday, but
play ball control because my defense can't make stops.
They've more often in the past said, we're going to play this way on offense because of what's happening on defense. And if that's a sign the Chiefs do the opposite, I mean, that's an advantage. That's an advantage. Because, right, if they get burned there and Kincaid catches the ball and he gets down to the 20 and now it takes the Bills another minute to score, Mahomes has all that time. That's where also, like, He's 7 for 7 in those spots.
Yeah. Trey Wayne, go ahead, stats.
I mean,
there are 125 drives in the playoffs where a quarterback or an offense needs a touchdown or a field goal. They need something.
Yeah.
Or they're done. 125 times.
Yeah.
Nobody else is over 50%. Not even Brady.
Brady's like 47%. He had
5 of 11.
5 of 11
in that spot. Mahomes is 7 for 7.
Which is where, listen, if no one else is over 50%, isn't the idea that I would sign up for Allen having the ball down 3 with a couple minutes to go against the Chiefs? Shouldn't nobody take that? I mean, you're telling me that's worse than a coin flip.
I'm telling you, yeah, that even for the greats, it's often worse than a coin flip.
It's happened 3 times now, one of which he got the result. I mean, it's the 13-second game, and he did it. He did it.
So he's 1 for 3.
Kind of. They lost the game.
Sure, but he did that.
He did, but like that's part of the equation.
It's not.
It's not right because Mahomes 7 for 7.
Mahomes is 7 for 7. He might have
He might have lost one of them.
Sure, right. Like they got a field goal to tie Cincinnati to go to overtime.
So this, I guess, would be a little bit separate then. But I've got 3 times now where that equation, that situation, has played out against the Chiefs in the playoffs, where Allen's got the ball down a score, chance to go win the football game, and I haven't won any of those 3 football games.
No, you should have won one of them.
Should have.
So he's 1 for 3.
I don't think I'm signing up for anything again that isn't the Bills have a lead. Like a significant against this team. I'm never going to believe anymore that they're going to win it.
Like a 9-point
Even if Allen
lead.
scores, I'm not going to believe they're going to win it.
Right.
So forevermore, like I've heard that a couple times this week, like, you know what? Down 3, Allen with the ball, I'll take that. I'm never taking that anymore. The Chiefs are winning that game. They've won it 3 times. Either it's because their quarterback has come down and done something insane and the Bills screwed it up, or it's because they've stopped Allen 2 years in a row in that spot.
To Cooper and the guy that has a win over Spagnuolo in the AFC Championship in a moment. First, Justin in Long Island, or on Long Island. Hey, Justin.
Morning, guys. How are you?
Great. Thanks, Justin.
Tell you, death, taxes, and the Bills ripping out my heart again. This defense just cannot stop a nosebleed, guys. They have they just can't get to Mahomes. Mahomes basically beat us how Josh Allen was supposed to beat the Chiefs, okay, with his legs as well. They just had no answer for him. And he was doing the little Tom Brady dump-offs. Sammy Tehran, are you kidding me? It was just, I couldn't believe what I was watching with my eyes. But the bottom line is we have a 22-21 lead. Why are the coaches not challenging Dalton Kincaid's spot? Why are they rushing?
He was down.
You know what is on fire?
Don't challenge a spot because he's down. The freeze frame is wrong. I don't know. I mean, watch the play.
They showed the elbow was down.
It would have been marked. It would have been marked. A half a yard. Then it's not worth a challenge with those timeouts in the game situation. He was down.
Guess, but I don't know, man. It looked very close to me.
It was close.
I mean, these refs, the way they spot these balls, they got to do something better with technology we have now because, again, I think they got 2 first downs there. I'm going to take that to my grave, and It is what it is. But I'm with you guys 100%. They have to improve this defense. Listen, DeMar Hamlin's an amazing story, but, guys, he's terrible. He's awful. He can't guard me, and I'm a big guy. So, let's be honest. They got there because the Ravens made 3 turnovers. Baltimore was the better team last round. Okay, they should have beat the Bills, but they made 3 turnovers, and Andrews didn't know how to catch a football.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were on borrowed time, and we still took the champs. We were up 22-21, and like I said, I'm taking that to my grave that we maybe go up by 8, and who knows, maybe Mahomes ties it, and then Josh has his moment to win it, with the ball, tied up. But again, it is what it is. McDermott, for some reason, I don't know what it is. When he plays Reed, the moment
he gets out coached. He gets beat. Yeah. He gets beat.
And one last thing on Josh. I love Josh, but just watching him early in that game, I felt like he was a little anxious, a little too much playing hero ball, and I don't like when Josh does hero ball.
Boy, I feel like there's not enough.
Like the MVP.
Thanks, Justin. I think there's not enough hero ball in that game on Sunday. Not enough. Too many screens. He can't unleash greatness when he's throwing screens. I think there's not enough hero ball. He never took off and ran. How many times? Not many.
There was one scramble that worked on the final drive. I don't remember one before that. A lot of their design runs didn't even work. And he didn't run when he was throwing the ball.
He didn't play hero ball at all. Unless hero ball is throwing it down the field when he should take easier throws, okay. But was there really any hero ball from Josh in the game? He had some incredible throws.
Yeah.
The last
play.
The last play.
The last play if it's complete, would have been considered hero ball.
Right. And somebody dropped it. Kincaid dropped it.
But that might have been it.
But I don't feel like that was a game at all where it's too much hero ball. I think
they ran a screen on 3rd and 10 on the final drive of the game.
Right. And that was after the previous possession. The possession you're talking about where Kincaid should have challenged the spot. They ran 2 screens on that drive. It was Cook for 2, screen Shakir, screen Kincaid, tush push. Like, you just remove greatness from your offense when you throw screens. And that's a big part of their offense. It's funny, like, I feel like this entire offseason will be about maybe that other weapon out there to help Allen. And every once in a while, someone's going to call in and hit us over the head with an anvil that the defense needs help. And it definitely does. And McDermott needs answers defensively. You know, as you're laying that out, Joe, about when you'll feel good about the Bills beating the Chiefs, you might only feel good about it if it's actually sudden death. They have the ball, and it's sudden death. Field goal, and it's over, right? You somehow stopped them in overtime, or you got the ball in overtime and scored, and then they scored, and they didn't kick for 2. Like,
I'm telling you, they're so in my heads right now, I don't even know if
there's no amount of time. 13 seconds should be not enough time. 8 seconds.
There's nothing.
2 seconds.
I'm going to believe Bass going to miss the field goal. Like, they're just it happens. The Chiefs get the breaks even when they're not dunking on you. So it's kind of like you used to say during the drought, like, I will pick the Bills to beat the Patriots, like, when I see it.
Yeah, once it happens.
I am there now with the Chiefs. I'm going to believe it's going to go their way some way or another. Just I don't know. It would have to be zeros on the clock. It would have to be, if Bass is lining up for that 42-yard field goal we talked about last week, there's no difference in the odds of it going through. Just because they've won these games, I'm just going to assume. Like, this is what Jordan did to people in the 90s, right? Like, he's never not made the AFC Championship game.
Right. I think there's an acceptance a little bit more, again, like that what you're dealing with over there.
Meanwhile, you're dealing with something that is historic, and beating that is just, it feels like it's inevitable.
It's going to take a lot. On Mahomes and Allen here, like, again, back to the Hero Ball conversation, I give all of you a homework assignment. I'd like any of you that watch anything out there, anywhere in the world, can someone find me one person on the planet Earth that will say in the next 2 weeks that the Chiefs can't win if Mahomes has to do as much as he did in that AFC Championship game? Will you find one person to say too reliant on Mahomes? Because they say it all the time about Josh, and I do not understand it. Mm-hmm. There's this idea that Allen is sometimes asked to do too much. I don't know who else they say it about. Hero ball. He's a hero.
They don't say it about Jackson.
They don't say it about Mahomes. They don't say it about Jackson. Mahomes had 2 rushing touchdowns and threw the ball all over the field, and the Chiefs could not run the ball against the Bills. No one, 0, is saying, well, you should make sure you're not asking him to do too much. It is never said about Patrick Mahomes. Ever. Why?
Yeah, it's weird.
Anyway, so the receiver that beat...
It's not about Justin
Spagnuolo.
Herbert, maybe.
Maybe, I don't know. Steve Spagnuolo.
Nah, maybe not, I don't know.
I looked up the only time the Chiefs they've lost twice in the AFC Championship game. Twice in overtime, sorry. Yeah. Twice in overtime. Once to the Patriots, they lost a coin toss. They lost to the Bengals.
They had the ball first.
The Chiefs won that coin toss and still lost the game. T. Higgins had 100 yards in that game.
Yep.
100 yards receiving. Higgins and Chase both had 6 catches. Chase had a 2-yard touchdown, short yardage.
Yep.
I'm not here to tell you, like, T. Higgins actually beat the Chiefs. But I looked it up because I wanted to see what gives Steve Spagnuolo any problems. What is it? He has lost 1 game recently in the AFC Championship, and it's in large part because the Chiefs were held to 20 points that day or whatever. So you need to get a defense to show up. But I'd be looking for what gives Spagnuolo any trouble. What can I figure out there? Higgins is a free agent. PFF ranks him pretty highly on how good of a receiver he was this year. One of the 10 best receivers in football this year, T. Higgins. And he gets, of course, overshadowed by Jamar Chase, who is amazing. And there will be a big-time ask, is he good enough to shoulder a number 1 load? Is he someone that, can transform an offense? That'll be a big conversation about T. Higgins, and he's going to get a lot of money. because he's a free agent. The Bengals could franchise tag him, or he could hit the market. Does it interest me? Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know that he's exactly what you might think that they need, but he's very good. He'd be the best receiver on this team instantly.
Yep.
And he's better than Amari Cooper.
He lines up on the outside.
He wins on the outside.
He wins downfield. Even if he doesn't quite just, burn you with his speed, he's fast enough. And he maybe is closer to what you thought you were getting from Cooper, but you obviously would expect to get way more from Higgins, just maybe in the same style, like
Cooper was graded by PFF wide receiver 60 this year.
Okay. Even that's better than I would have thought. That's like a low-end number 2.
Yeah. And you had numbers on yards per route run.
Yards per route run, 18.2 with the Bills. He was much lower in Cleveland. 18.2, 1.82 with the Bills was his yards per route run. That was pretty good. I mean, it was better than Tyreek Hill, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Jerry Jeudy, Garrett Wilson, Michael Pittman, Jordan Addison, Brandon Ayuk, Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, there's a lot of names below that. And obviously he didn't play as many snaps as a lot of those guys. So
that's the thing here on yards per route run. Why is he not on the field more? I think I have an answer to this. I mean, some of those names you mentioned are
he's not out there when they're running it.
That's right. But all those guys you mentioned are guys you would never want to take off the field.
Right.
Why would you ever take Tyreek Hill off the field? Because when he's on the field, what does the opposing defense do?
They have to account for him.
They think about him.
Yep.
What happens when Garrett Wilson is on the field? They have to think about him all the time.
Yep.
And is it not in the design of the Bills' offense to get the defense to think about their number one receiver, or do they not think he's someone that they will bother with? Like, sure, they'll notice him, but he's not on the level of those players. Ayuk is the best separator in the league. He was hurt this year, of course.
Mm-hmm.
When he's on the field, you think about him. And for Cooper's yards per route run number to be good means when he's out there, he was pretty efficient. But if he's not someone that is making the opposing defense take notice on every play, then that's why he's not on the field. Like, that's the kind of thing we were told Kincaid was going to be. Oh, when he's out there, that's a problem for them.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's true either. That you could say blue chipper in the beginning of the segment. Dan Orlovsky's talking about the one true, doesn't have to be elite number one. There's just somebody out there that can win all the time. He's talking about somebody you think about on every play, or someone when he's on the field you have to notice. That's what the Bills have to do when they see Worthy out there. Teams have to think about him on every play. He doesn't get the ball on every play, but he can beat you on any play. That's so many of these guys. Malik Neighbors. That's what that is. He showed up as a rookie. That's Brian Thomas Jr. He now does everything. Brian Thomas Jr. had a not-so-great yards per route run at LSU, in part because Neighbors is on the field with him. And now, is he on the field a lot? Gabe Davis would have had a really low yards per route run because he's on the field all the time because he blocked.
Yep.
So, I don't know. I'm rambling about receivers at this point.
I mean, I'm just wondering, was it better than we thought it was? I mean, 9.3 yards per target is another number. Mac Hollins 7.6, Kincaid 6.0, Samuel 5.5. And some of that is where you run your routes. Right, Cooper caught some down the field, and a lot of those guys didn't. But he's higher than Shakir on the year. Isn't that a little bit of, all right, it kind of, when they threw it to him, well, basically it's, to me, when he was out there, Allen did throw the ball to him. He just wasn't out there all that often. And when Allen threw the ball to him, it worked pretty well.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, though. I don't want to go all in on, well, they should have used him a lot more because of that. Because when I watched him, he just didn't look like he had any juice. It looked tough. It looked like, all right, he caught some in the slot where he'd run a quick slant or he'd run a little route and he would get some space and he would catch it underneath. But that's not why you brought him in. A lot of those plays that you were getting that you brought him in for are Allen's making a perfect pass. So and Cooper's making a great catch. So I don't know that I'd want to go all in on they could have used him more, but the numbers kind of point to maybe they could have, if they wanted to, they could have used him a little bit more.
803-0550 to join us.
I'd still like to do something else, I think, than re-signing him, though.
Yes, I think I would do something else. 803-0550. Sal's going to join us. More of your phone calls. Wide open stuff. Worst Call Wednesday coming up.
Worst call Wednesday.
Worst call Wednesday. Can be on the field, off the field. As we're watching the endless replays of the fourth down push that did not work.
Is that the replay getting shown the most? No, the 4th and 5 heave probably.
Maybe. It's close. The bad spot. Yeah, it's tough. It is, it's Wednesday. It's the off season.
It's the off season. And you said it's not draft season yet.
Well,
when is it draft season?
I'll title.
It is Senior Bowl week.
I was just going to say, I'll title this week From New Orleans to Mobile.
Yeah.
All due respect to Mobile, Alabama. I'm sure it's a wonderful place. We were dreaming of going to New Orleans. Instead, I'm seeing updates from the Senior Bowl and checking out receivers and defensive tackles and all that good stuff.
I mean, Mobile seems like a nice place.
I'm sure it's nice.
It's near the water?
I have been to Alabama. I've been to Huntsville.
Alabama? Is that north? That's more north of I don't know.
That's a great question. I don't know.
Okay. What were we in Huntsville for?
Niagara Hockey playing the Alabama Huntsville
Chargers. Yeah, that's right. They still do a D1 hockey team.
There's also the one thing I remember about Huntsville is that there's a giant rocket ship, like a NASA rocket ship
in Huntsville, Alabama.
There might be a NASA center there or something like that.
Like one that was actually in space.
That's a good question. I just drove by it.
Okay. You didn't stop to read the sign or anything? By the way, they are polar opposites. Huntsville is like the very top of Alabama, and Mobile is like down on the Gulf.
Yeah, U.S. Space and Rocket Center, Huntsville, Alabama.
I'm into space stuff. I would go.
I'm into space stuff. Who isn't?
Yeah.
All right, Sal, when we return, more of your phone calls, 803-0550. I'm sure calls are rolling in on rockets right now. Why not, right? Jeremy and Joe on WGR.
This is a Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update.
Bills season ended on Sunday. We'll hear from the general manager and the head coach at some point this week. That's what's next for them. Some football news from around the league. New Orleans still looking for their head coach. It's not going to be Mike McCarthy. McCarthy is pulling his name out of the running. He is going to focus on next year's coach cycle. Reportedly not getting the interest from New Orleans that he thought he would, so he's pulling out. Kellen Moore right now is thought to be the lead candidate for the New Orleans job. He is the offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles, so that might not happen until after the Super Bowl. Of course, Cliff Kingsbury also pulling his name out of consideration. Sabres win last night, 7-2 over the Boston Bruins. 2 hat tricks, one by Tage Thompson, one by J.J. Peterka, and that's the first time that's happened in a Sabre game, or the Sabres have done it since Drew Stafford and Derek Roy did it in 2008. Next up for the Sabres, Nashville on Friday. Rob Ray going into the Sabres Hall of Fame that night. Those are your Paddock Chevrolet Sports headlines. Kick off 2025 with a new Chevy from Paddock.
Call or text WGR at 803-0550 or post on X at WGR550 and get connected to Jeremy and Joe now. Brought to you by Northtown Kia. Check out the 2025 Kia K4 sedan. Named finalist for the 2025 North American Car of the Year. It's Sal Capaccio.
Sal Capaccio. Sal Capaccio. Sal Capaccio. Sal Capaccio. Sal Capaccio. Sal Capaccio. Sal Capaccio.
On WGR.
Mr. Sal Capaccio joins us on the Western Hotline. We've put up our first decoration here in studio. You can see it behind me here.
There it is. The big board.
The wide receiver big board. Hey, Sal. Wide receiver big board's back. I mean, there's going to be other stuff, too.
God.
It's going to be different. I know.
We should get a pass rusher big board, too.
It's also budget. We never had a defensive end big board or a corner big board, so we're just going to repurpose the wide receiver big board.
We could put some duct tape over the wide receiver pod if we really need to.
I mean, it's like Groundhog Day, right? I mean, is it going to be?
It's the Chiefs.
Is it going to be? I mean, is that what we're doing?
Yeah. Well, we're doing a lot of things. How are you?
Well, it is again like this with the Chiefs again, of course, right? I mean, yeah, for sure. It's Groundhog Day in a lot of ways, but all right. Well, here we go. I don't know. Is the wide receiver train rolling along like it has for the last several years?
Well, I do think
is it going to be the? What's the difference? Maybe it's a wide receiver like not a train, but something else that's a little less than a train.
Yeah, because it's going to be a lot of help on defense is what they need. We know that the offense is nearly fully formed, and the defense has, I think, a lot of potential changes.
That's where I think it's very early in the offseason, and there's a lot of time for this. But, for me, Sal,
yes,
they need a ton on defense. So I'd expect the volume and maybe even the most, expensive things, whether it's free agency or draft, that you're going to spend on this offseason to be on the defense. But to me, on offense, there's only one thing. It's what do you want to do with whoever replaces Amari Cooper? Because the line, the tight ends, the running backs, if they want to bring Ty Johnson back, to me, everything else is kind of already done.
I agree with that. I mean, who knows? Maybe Amari Cooper replaces Amari Cooper. I don't think so, but that's still a possibility, right? The team could feel, and he could feel it. I mean, the way he talked about being in this organization seemed like he really, really enjoyed it. But look, I mean, I don't know if that's something the Bills want to do at his age. He's going to have, I don't know what kind of market he's going to have, what he wants to do. That said, yeah, I mean, we just did Always Game Day in Buffalo yesterday, and Matt said, and I agree with him, he said, I think the 4 wide receivers are Khalil Shakir, Matt Collins, Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, whatever order. And then you add somebody, which is right.
Yep.
And they by the way, they have already re-signed KJ Hamler, Tyrell Shavers, and Jalen Virgil to futures contracts, which basically means, so everybody knows, a futures contract just means they're now on layaway until the new league year begins. You have them. Once the new league year begins, they're on your roster. They go on the 90-man roster. So they're back. They're coming back to training camp. I don't think any of those 3 really move the needle for what you might want to go along with your other 4, right? I think that we're in the same position as last year of thinking. Last year, the difference was, though, you needed one, and then you go out and get Keon Coleman, and then later you trade for Amari Cooper. That said, I agree. What do you want at running back? Nothing. I think you really like the running back room. Ty Johnson is a free agent. I would really think that they'd like to get him back. He's a He's a really good third down back, obviously. You could go out and get another guy like Ty Johnson, but I think that just having him would be a really, a benefit to come back. And then I think the best thing about this roster outside of Josh Allen and a couple of things we just talked about, I guess, running back, but, I mean, guys, the offensive line is fully intact coming back. I mean, fully intact, right? So it's pretty amazing to have that offensive line, how good it was this year, that every single person is coming back. The only free agent they have is a guy who's on IR, and that is Tommy Doyle.
Yeah. I did wonder about Johnson a little bit. Just, do you think, Sal, will spend any time this offseason on a running back? And, like, when I mean a running back, I mean, like, a big idea at running back. They have James Cook. I'm not saying he is, not going to be a starter, but maybe in thinking about the Chiefs, I wonder how the Bills will approach thinking about them, whether it's, of course they're going to want their defense to play better, but maybe they, instead of saying, hey, let's get into a gunfight and go get, T. Higgins, maybe the way to do it is that James Cook only had 4 carries in the first half, right? Let's go do what the Lions did. Let's go have our version of Sonic and Knuckles. Let's pair James Cook, who only plays like 50% of the snaps roughly, and let's go get, I don't want to even throw a name out yet, but some big idea at running back the way the Lions have Gibbs and Montgomery. Do you feel like that is in their motivation at all, or do you think it's more likely they'll just want to run it back with the same type of group they just had?
Yeah, I don't think they'll want to do that, and I would be upset if they did that. I mean, to me, the answer is give James Cook the ball more instead of getting someone. If you want to get in that kind of battle, I mean, he had 9 carries, and someone pointed out the quarter-by-quarter carries to me, and broke it down. 9 carries in the third quarter for a whole bunch of yards, like 60-something yards, whatever it was. Like, they should have done that earlier. I mean, that's what Ray Davis is, isn't it, guys? Ray Davis had a nice rookie year. I thought he played well. I thought he did well. So Ty Johnson's the third running back of this team, really, because of his, well, maybe not. Maybe he became the second running back, I guess. But, no, I don't think they need to. I think running back is something that they're probably – I mean, you have Frank Gore Jr. on the practice squad. So I wouldn't want to spend very much time at all on running back this offseason.
Sorry, I was going to say he's maybe the third runner, but he's the second running back, if that makes sense.
Yeah, probably right.
Sal Capaccio on the Western Hotline. Sal, usually by, I don't know, maybe you would know this. I shouldn't just say usually. Have McDermott and Bean usually spoken by now? I mean, it's Wednesday.
I went back and looked. Sorry, Jeremy. I did go back and look, like, because we're trying to figure it out, because I don't know. Everybody in media is like waiting to kind of hear when we're going down there, right, to hear from them. So we're all trying to figure out our schedules. So I went and looked last year, literally went back. I save everything. I have emails and texts, and I went back and scrolled and said, okay, last year we were informed on Tuesday evening that they would be talking, Tuesday afternoon they'd be talking on Wednesday morning.
Okay.
And then so today's that, but we haven't heard anything yet. So I'm guessing maybe Thursday. Maybe we'll hear today about tomorrow, but that is still, I have no idea for sure, but that would be my guess maybe at this point.
Okay. And we know we're not anticipating, well, I suppose there could be a change at special teams coordinator, possibly. People have brought that up as an idea. Joe Brady back, Bobby Babich back, one would assume. Like, I don't know, Sal, that's part of what is happening here, right? They're doing their own meetings, kind of getting their own house in order before telling us where they are.
Yeah, they're doing exit meetings right now. That goes for players, coaches. Players, I think, go through physicals at the end of the year so they can know what's going on with them. I'm sure they're talking with certain players about whether or not they're going to come back, not come back, re-sign, futures contracts. Like I said, they've already done that. The Bills have announced, several futures signings. In fact, yesterday were a couple more. That's where you get the wide receivers that came in yesterday. Shavers and Virgil. Hamler had already been announced. There have been a few others. What happens is if you're on the practice squad, 6 days after your season ends, your practice squad contract expires. So in, I guess, another 4 days or so, if you haven't re-signed a futures contract, then you're basically a free agent, and you could sign a free futures contract with another team. So that they're probably working out all of that right now. Going back, I'll be putting something up on the web today, should be, about unrestricted free agents. That's the next thing on task for them. But the immediate part of this, yes, coaching staff, are there going to be any changes? There's always changes in some respect. Whether that's a big one like a coordinator, and I think the one we'd be watching here is Matthew Smiley. Do the Bills feel that they need to move on from Matthew Smiley? I know a lot of fans do, and I understand that. I talked to several in fact, I talked to all 3 main special teams guys and the locker room guys, Sam Martin, Tyler Bass, Reed Ferguson. I don't think it's any surprise when I say this, but all of them threw entire support behind Matthew Smiley and said that they believe he's a really good coach. He connects with the players very well. But look, it's about results, and quite frankly, there were too many times where the results on special teams just weren't good enough in games this year.
Sal Capaccio on the Western Hotline. So how have you felt the week has gone? Whether it's fans or whether it's, the TV people or radio, like how do you feel like the reaction has gone to the Bills losing? Is it, maybe this is just recency, but does it feel like this year, this game more than others, there's more variety in things being blamed than maybe in the past? I mean, like, especially like the 13-second game, like everyone was talking about the same thing. And after this loss, I feel like everyone's kind of on something different.
It's a great question. I agree with you, Joe. Yep. I would say this, though. So the reaction is kind of what I know I did, and I think a lot of you guys, everybody kind of thought this would happen. And this was my thought all year. I said this all year. I said the Bills get to the playoffs again, they lose to the Chiefs. Regardless of how poorly or great Josh Allen plays, it's going to just fall on Sean McDermott, and everybody's going to be talking about Sean McDermott, right? I mean, that's just what it is.
Yep.
And that's where it is. I mean, look, the blame game, as I said on Monday in the Extra Point Show, whenever you lose, especially a game like this, someone wants to blame the offense, blame the defense. There's plenty of blame to go around. The Bills lost in every phase of this game in some little capacity or big capacity. The Bills lost. They had a big punt return against them. There's a special teams loss right there. The conversions that didn't go their way, that they, the short yardage, all those things, that's offense, that's special teams. Defense, obviously, we know. The little margins the Chiefs has had throughout the game. The Chiefs were better in every little area in some way, shape, or form. So there's not a blame offense, blame defense to me. It's everybody needs a share in the blame here. But there's no smoking gun from Sean McDermott of he should have gone for it on fourth down there. They should have punted there. There's nothing there. But yet, because of this coach still being the coach in this situation, people are still going that route. I just did not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but I just did a spot with Zach Gelb from Infinity Sports last night. And he's telling me, well, I really think, boy, if the Bills just went out and got Bill Belichick, it'd be different. I'm like, dude, what are we doing here? Right? Like, this is just people who want to grab at something to say, well, you need a new head coach. And that's fine if you think that. But what a guy like, I don't know, Bill Belichick we're talking about, was at North Carolina, who Sean McDermott owned after Tom Brady left, right?
Yeah.
I got Brett Coleman out here tweeting about getting Robert Saleh as a head coach. Like, do you even know what a head coach does? Like, what are we doing?
I think what's interesting, Warren Sharp, too, I think was like, he said, everyone's like got something like this, fire McDermott and hire Steve Spagnuolo.
Right.
Like, I think maybe is the common thread there, and I don't think any of these, by the way, are like realistic at all, and a lot of them are kind of nuts. But is it interesting at all that they all kind of have the common thread of this defense, this coach doesn't know what to do, not game management, not even like the head coach part of it. It's more that as a defensive scheme, this isn't what's working.
And that's it to me, Sal. Like, there are a lot of different cultures, a lot of different things. Whenever we talk, anybody wants to talk about moving on from McDermott, my question is, you have to have a name for me first. So to bring up Belichick is to say, like, fine, that guy had a scheme for a lot of different players. Maybe he would have one for Mahomes. But that really is where we're at. Mahomes, sorry, I'm going to go on this for a minute. I'm guilty of this. I've started to believe, well, Mahomes is always going to go off, so there's nothing you can do. And that's just not true. The other defensive coordinators that have faced him in the playoffs, no one has been as bad against Mahomes as McDermott. The Bills' defenses get run over by that team, even when they are better than this year's defense was. And, like the constants, the Groundhog Day, one of the Groundhog Days is that Patrick Mahomes has absolutely no problems against the Sean McDermott defense. It's 4 years, 4 out of 5 in a row now. And throw Burrow in there, too. They get knocked out of the playoffs as soon as somebody doesn't have a problem with this defense, and that is something that happens every year.
Yeah, and it's all valid, no doubt. To go back to Joe's question, and I went off on a tangent there, and I'm sorry, but the reaction has been that mostly, which is, just go to Sean McDermott, which I figured that would be no matter. And Josh didn't have his best game, right? But no one's going to sit here and blame Josh Allen. I mean, the guy might win the MVP, right? I do think, though, there's been so much about the officiating, and I'm not there. Like, I think that these calls could have gone either way, right? And I think that there's probably maybe you look. Maybe Josh Allen got the first down. There's definitely some evidence that shows that he could have. I don't know. I'm not that guy. I'm the guy that says, get a yard and a half on a tush push, right? Like, go, hold on to the ball if you're Cole Bishop. Don't let Xavier Worthy, who's, a $190 or if that, take the ball from you as a safety. Like, that's where I go. That a lot of it's been about the officiating. I'm not the person to do that. Although I do think that there's some controversial calls there. I just think you got to make plays in situations. All those things you said though, Jeremy, are correct. There's no doubt. I don't know. I don't know what the answer there is, except I will tell you that I do think this about McDermott. He is very, he does go into an offseason and have, a way that he really goes back and says, what do we need to do different? And unfortunately, over the last several years, yes, the defense has fallen short, but he has adjusted in certain areas, on offense especially, or game management would have really benefited. I wonder if this is an offseason where he goes and says, we just have to be more aggressive in these big games. Because look at what Spagnuolo did in that game, the aggressiveness on those critical plays. And it's not like Sean or Bobby Babich in this case, I guess, haven't been aggressive in a lot of key situations. They have. They were very aggressive. Sean was last year against Russell Wilson in Monday night. They got beat because of the pass interference. They were aggressive against Jalen Hurts in overtime last year. There have been times in these games, and even this year. But maybe that's the next evolution. I don't know. Something does have to change in these games against that particular team or these teams like that. Even in the Ravens game, they did enough with turnovers, but they didn't even force a punt, right? Yep. So the Ravens were kind of having their way moving the ball until they had turnovers, which the Bills obviously give credit for. I wonder what the next step is for the defense in that regard.
Sal Capaccio. Sal, we got to run. We'll be listening and following to see what we get today. If it's today that there's an announcement or when the GM and the coach speak with the media. Thank you, sir.
You got it, guys. Thanks.
When we go back, it's Worst Call Wednesday coming up.
Dog every football Monday at 4 p.m. Brought to you by Northwest Bank. For what's next, get started at northwest.com. Time now for Worst Call Wednesday. Brought to you by Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center.
All right, very quickly, Worst Call Wednesday brought to you by Roswell Park. Worst call on the field, ice, wherever. Rory McIlroy made it. Tell you what it is in a minute. One of the worst calls you can make is to skip your recommended cancer screenings. To learn more about potentially life-saving screening recommendations and guidelines, visit roswellpark.org/screening. So Rory and Tiger played on TGL this week. I like TGL. This is no shade at TGL, but we got to be real about something. Tiger, when asked about what he's seeing from Rory, what are you seeing from Tiger in these TGL matches?
Yep.
It's amazing to go up and compete against one of your heroes. That's fine. I've shared the course with him many times, and I've been in a couple final groups with him. He has just as much intensity out there tonight as he does when he's trying to win a major championship or trying to finish off a golf tournament. All right, buddy. Easy.
I mean, he was fired up.
We did not get
not as much.
Masters Tiger Woods at a TGL event. Tiger laughed to tears 2 weeks ago because of a Kevin Kisner shot.
Yeah.
Tiger speaks to other humans at TGL, which is something he does not do at a major.
He did get intense a little bit, though. Did you see what happened on Monday?
Sure, he's competitive.
Yeah, Rory threw the hammer, which made it worth Rory made his putt, and then he threw the hammer, which made the hole worth twice as much.
Yep.
When Tiger had an 8-footer. Then Tiger drained the 8-footer and he spiked the golf ball. So he seemed fired up, but it's not, come on. Masters Tiger would have stared through your soul.
Right. All right, there you go. Worst Call Wednesday. Back, open segment. When we return, Jeremy and Joe here on WGR.
4 hours with Odyssey Rewind. Just download the Odyssey app and select WGR. You can even share your Rewind moments with friends. Brought to you by Arthur Pressman, your DWI and traffic attorney. Sports Radio 550 WGR Buffalo and WKSE HD2 Niagara Falls, Buffalo, 98.5 FM.
An Odyssey sports station.
Broadcasting live from the Just Call Jed studios. Injured? Call Jed.com. This is the official voice of the Buffalo Bills. WGR Sports Radio 550. The official voice of the Buffalo Bills. WGR Sports Radio 550 and WGR550.com. This is a Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update.
Sabres win last night. Big 7-2 over the Boston Bruins. Double hat trick. One by Tage Thompson, one by J.J. Peterka. First time two Sabres have scored a hat trick in the same game since Derek Roy and Drew Stafford did it back in 2008. Pominville and Hesh before that in 2006. So it happened a couple times in those years. Sabres win by 5 over Boston. Next up is Nashville on Friday night. So the homestand continues. Rob Ray Hall of Fame night on Friday at the arena, so should be a good one. To football, still don't know exactly when Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane will meet with the media in their postseason press conferences. That should, though, be sometime this week. Elsewhere around the league, the New Orleans Saints still with a head coach vacancy. Looks like Kellen Moore, the Eagles' OC, is going to get that job, but we'll see. He is the favorite after Mike McCarthy pulled his name out of the ring and is going to focus on next year's head coach cycle. Also, Cliff Kingsbury did the same. Kingsbury, the Washington offensive coordinator, said he is not going to interview with New Orleans for the job. Joe Brady pulled out last week. Elsewhere around the league, Andrew Barry, the Browns general manager, being asked about Myles Garrett trade rumors, said that he has no intention of trading Garrett this offseason. He wants Garrett to retire as a Cleveland Brown. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Kickoff 2025 with a new Chevy from Paddock.
I'm angry at how last week got hijacked. I'm angry at folks, instead of just being like, I'm sorry, I was wrong, creating a nonsense conspiracy. I'm angry at the way we cover football these days.
Who are we talking about?
Who are we not talking about? The conspiracy stuff, mainstream media let the tail wag the dog, in that the internet's talking about it. So I guess it's the story. ML Football and Dove Kleinman got 9,000 retweets on this still shot photo of a potential hold. So I guess it's got to be the B block today.
Nick Wright complaining that too many mainstream people have gone with the Chiefs are helped by the refs. It's rigged, all that. He's totally right. He's totally right. I'm sorry. He's right. Adam Schefter framed a tweet as relief is coming on Mahomes diving.
Yeah.
And the conspiracy theories are, I just, all due respect to everyone out there, like, I'm mad about bad calls too. Bad calls happen all the time in lots of games. The team that loses is the team that gets mad about calls. That's how this works. And in the current ecosystem of social media and the internet and everything that happens on every platform, you have 20 million people ready to rail against the refs. Always the losing team.
Mm-hmm.
And how many people will defend the refs? No one.
Chiefs fans.
It is low-hanging fruit. It's just, hey, look at this. Your team isn't bad. In fact, people are conspiring against your team.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make it make sense. You can't make a good point on it. You can't sound like a rational person by trying to make the claim that the NFL wants the Chiefs to win. You just can't do it. Doesn't work. And Nick Wright, unfortunately, is right when he says that the tail wagged the dog. That, well, people are saying is not actually a thing you really ever go with.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So he's right about that.
There are numbers, though, that show there. Like, it doesn't have to be conscious.
Oh, I agree with that.
But there are numbers that show they're getting more calls in playoff games.
I agree with that.
So at that point, does it matter?
Who gets the second most?
No idea.
Why not? Who gets the least?
Don't know.
Why not?
I know the Bills aren't second, though, because
Okay.
we looked it up and they were like below average.
Okay. But we
How
don't
many
know
games.
the whole standings.
All right.
Who was the most penalized team in the regular season?
But I guess at that point, if they do get the most, why do I mean, I know people will care because they don't like conspiracies. Why do I care what the motivation is? If they get the calls, they get the calls. I don't care if you did it on purpose or not, because the result is the same.
Home teams get more calls, and we already know that.
Right.
And they're home all the time.
Yep.
So one would stand to reason they're going to get the occasional more calls.
Also, does Schefter put it that way and add fuel to the fire because that's what owners think? Because that's who's going to decide this, right? Like, the league, Goodell is just the shield for the owners. The owners are the league. Do the owners feel the same way? And is that going to kind of spark a change here with, the offside, or not the offside, the line of scrimmage and where you mark the ball? Will they put a chip in the ball so that you can see on camera? They've already tested it in the preseason, right? Like, if it's a first down or not. Like, are owners thinking this way? They did change the overtime rules.
They did. Right. The Bills got screwed, and they changed the rule.
Right. So is the Broncos owner and the Raiders owner and Pagula is the Eagles owner? Like, is everybody watching these games and thinking, I can't believe they continue to get these breaks, these calls? Not in same thing. Maybe they don't believe that it's a conspiracy, but they're sick of it too.
We're all sick of them.
So they will, okay, you won that way, and you got the ball back on a play that should have been a first down Buffalo. We're going to fix that. And maybe they'll be more motivated to do it because they're all sick of the Chiefs too. Like, that's why I think it's going to change.
What's going to change?
They're going to put chips in the football and determine first downs.
They probably, if they wanted to do that, they were already going to do that.
But maybe now they do it faster. Or maybe not. Maybe they were just going to do it no matter what. Because they tested it in the preseason in some stadiums, right? Like, not everybody had it.
Careful.
Wasn't that the story?
The story was overblown as to what would actually happen.
Okay.
It was the elimination of the chain gang,
right?
Basically, that the ball would be spotted and the first down line to gain would be spotted differently, but it was not chip in the ball tells you where it is. It would still be someone
like scanned.
I'm not even sure. The thing I remember about it, was that the headline was a lot sexier than what it really was.
It was the Hawkeye technology for the line to gain in some preseason games. So Hawkeye would mean to me more that they have something that is scanning the entire field rather than there's something in the football.
Right. Even the story itself. The technology gives replay multiple angles, time synchronized angles of the play, how Hawkeye works on game days. Now, one would ask, why would they be developing this if they need to keep in their arsenal the ability to give Chiefs spots?
Mm-hmm.
Why are they developing this? Why do they want this? Why do they have?
That's why I never believe in the conspiracy part of it. Like, you can be upset about the calls and how 9 or 10 of the 11 games, whatever, they have the benefit of more calls than the opponent. But the league, you believe the league is conspiring for the Chiefs to win? The league is the owners.
Right.
Why does the owner of the Seahawks want to see the Chiefs win? Why does the Broncos owner in the division? Why does the Bills owner? Why do any of these owners want the Chiefs to win? Like, that to me is where it becomes, okay, you don't even know how the league works if you think the league is conspiring for them.
The other part of this is, if you think the league is conspiring for the Chiefs, you probably should start to think about that the league is also conspiring for the Bills to get there. They don't want Chiefs and somebody boring.
We'll see what the ratings
Well, hold on. Come on. You think they do it for ratings? They just had the highest rated AFC Championship game ever. That doesn't happen if it's Chiefs and Broncos.
Mm-hmm.
Did they fix to get the Bills in?
We'll see. That's going to get tested, right? Like, this is going to be the test for, is there Chiefs fatigue?
Even if
42 million viewers last year for the Super Bowl. Is that number going to be lower this year? Or is it going to be not that much higher? Because you're supposed to see big growth year to year. And if that doesn't happen, That's not them getting what they want. Would they have a higher rating if the Bills were in the Super Bowl?
Maybe. We don't ever get to know.
I think
it doesn't matter.
Have it tested.
It also doesn't matter. We went through years of people, right? Oh, the players are too woke. I'm not going to watch the league anymore. Oh, the ratings are going to tank. What happened? They're fine. It's all a lie. All that stuff. How are the Super Bowl ratings year over year? Last year, you said
I'm looking right now.
The number was 120 million,
and they got a 42 rating.
The year before it was 114
with a 40 rating.
Right, 40 rating.
So it went up.
Kansas City, Philadelphia. Taylor Swift was not a part of the the Chiefs that year. From Rams, Bengals to Chiefs, Eagles went up 4 points. Taylor Swift was not a factor. Was it still fixed? Was it fixed then? Kansas City, San Francisco got a 41. Tampa, Kansas City got a 38.
That might be COVID related.
Was that fixed? Was that not fixed?
That was Brady versus Mahomes.
Brady versus Mahomes got a lower rating than Burrow versus Stafford. Fixed? Does anybody care?
I think
highest rated Super Bowl by share. Do you know what it was?
Oh, that's got to. I'm looking. You got to go back further, right?
New England, Seattle. Was it fixed? Everyone, of course, knew. Oh, Russell Wilson's going to get us the biggest number here. Right. Seattle. You just can't. You can't make it make sense. A $1 billion league fixes its results. People are annoyed by this game. They're still going to watch it. It's still going to do a monster rating. If it does the highest rating of any Super Bowl, it's because people will be so mad they want to watch the Chiefs lose, maybe, or who cares?
Yeah.
It's not fixed.
I think you can have the referee debate or conversation, but it can't involve all of that. It has to really has to, I think, begin and end with maybe the regular season does matter for the Chiefs more than we think. Maybe them getting all of these home games that's the problem. It's not that it's fixed or that it's a conspiracy. It's everyone lets the Chiefs have home games every year in the playoffs, so they're more likely to have the penalty advantage. And there's probably a lot that goes with that. I mean, I think the lesson of this year maybe is that they are different in the playoffs. They are. But part of that is probably influenced by they are always on cruise control at the end. They are always on cruise control at the end. They never have to play a wild card game.
Their last meaningful
Almost
game.
Never.
Their last meaningful game was on Christmas.
Right. So how do you then operate as a team? You can start planning for AFC championships in December. I mean, so much earlier than everybody else that's fighting tooth and nail to get to a meeting with you where they have to show their best stuff and, things they might have saved. They have to use it because, I'm in the divisional round and it's a 3-point football game. So now I got to put this on film because I'm trying to win this game. Kansas City doesn't have to do that. Not as often.
Yep.
So, to me, I think the lesson and part of that is the referee conversation. The lesson of this year for me is the regular season is not meaningful for evaluating what Kansas City is going to be in the playoffs, but it can be meaningful if you make their path harder and you make them have to try harder before they get to the postseason.
Could I add one little piece to that? The regular season also maybe is no longer meaningful for evaluating whether or not the Bills have a good defense.
Yeah, I think it has to be true now.
Right?
It has to be.
Hey, the Bills defense is ranked number 1 in the league. Okay, sounds great. Let me know what they do against the Chiefs in the playoffs. Because they always fall apart. And now we're at McDermott calling plays for that. We're at Leslie Frazier calling plays for that.
Babbage.
We're at Babbage calling plays for that. The defense itself, in multiple structures, does make a difference.
Do they ever change dramatically, though?
I have no idea.
That is the thing about McDermott being the coach. Even if there's different play callers year to year, it does seem you would think it falls on him more so. We were talking in the break. It might feel different if they had decided, or if he had decided at any point along the way here, to bring in a more
Lou Anarumo.
Yeah,
Robert
Saleh, one of these, big name defensive coordinators where it might be more believable to say, if Robert Saleh was their defensive coordinator, if they had decided this week, hey, we're going to move on from Babbage and we're going to hire Robert Saleh to oversee the defense, then suddenly it becomes more about him, I think. McDermott, maybe you think about more as like the CEO on the sideline rather than, well, it's his defense. But because he's got Saleh. It's Saleh's defense now.
Right.
Babbage, you're not going to get that with a first-time guy like Bobby Babbage. I mean, it's much more believable to think McDermott's got his hands on the defense when you don't have a more, veteran guy there. So I think he has to. With that being said, I think he takes on a lot of the blame, and he should. He's the defensive coach.
He is.
He's the coach. He's the head coach. He's made his money with defense, and your defense is the worst against Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs compared to everybody else.
Everybody else. Yep. We'll get some calls in. James in Miami. I'm sorry to report that Nick Wright was correct about something. Hey, James.
Hey, guys. Hey, I'm ready.
Go for it.
All right. Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. I think everything you guys were just talking about there is spot on. In terms of McDermott's defense and performance in the playoffs. I just wanted to add a little bit of kind of numerical context to it. If you look at their last 5 playoff losses, they've allowed opposing QBs to generate over 17 points of EPA and have a 57% success rate passing or higher. And those games, they happen about 5% of the time in NFL games over the last 10 years. So the chances of having that happen each of the last 5 years are astronomically small. And just in terms of kind of how that impacts, the outcome of the game, when teams reach that level, they win about 90% of the time. And in the playoffs over the last 10 years, they're 18-0. So I think all this talk about who dropped the pass or the refs did what, all that sort of stuff is just kind of beside the point because the team is starting so far behind the 8 ball with the defensive performances. Like when a quarterback performs that well, teams win by 16 points on average. How are the Bills supposed to overcome that?
Yep. The answer is, James, the way they overcome it is the way they overcame it against Baltimore, and that's turnovers, and you can't rely on that. You can't count on it. Yeah, I mean, thanks for the numbers. I was actually going to start to look into some of that, like EPA per play for Mahomes and for Burrow. It's the Chiefs every time. Listen, if we did mystery team, you could take the jerseys off the teams. You could watch the Bills' last playoff game every year, the last 5 years, and what you would see is why'd they lose? Because the quarterback on the other team threw it all over them without any trouble. That's it. That's the common thread. The reason it's the Chiefs all the time is because they're one of the teams that's equipped to do it and in this spot. Baltimore was doing it in the divisional round. Burrow did it. And you know what? I kind of mocked the fear of the Bengals getting in the playoffs. We're probably lucky they did not. Mm-hmm. If Burrow gets in as the 7,
it would have been a high-scoring game.
It would have been a very high-scoring game. Burrow would have lit them up.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. This defense gets to the playoffs.
That game, no doubt, would have been 42-38.
And the scariest part of it for me is this. And this gets to the McDermott. I do think he is a good head coach. When it comes, whether the breakdown is in calling defense, designing defense, whatever it is, you've got 2 quarterbacks now, and I want to include Lamar here. It used to be, you could hold Lamar in check. You got answers for Lamar. They really didn't in the divisional round. He dropped the ball. His tight end dropped the ball. His tight end fumbled the ball. He had 1 bad throw in that game. Otherwise, he picked up chunks at will, and down 8 with a chance to win the game, he went right down the field too fast.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have answers, even when they do have a great defense. That, to me, is the scariest part of this. What should I expect next year? I expect the Bills to be 14-3 with a better roster, and maybe they're the 1 seed. And if they come across a team that can throw the ball, this team is also supposed to be built to stop the pass. They're going to come across a team that can throw the ball.
They have been. Do you think they were this year?
No.
This year might be different for that. I think in the past that's absolutely true.
I do think they were built to stop the pass this year. That's why they play nickel as their base. Their talent was not as good. There's no doubt about that. But that's what I'm saying.
Because their numbers say they were better at stopping the run this year.
Right. That's how bad they were this year, talent-wise.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm getting at is, even if they fix it on the back end, the regular season for what their defensive ranking will be, that's the newest thing that doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. Bills, number 1 against the pass going into the playoffs. Ooh, okay, what can they do? Here comes Mahomes. 97% success rate.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen? It's just
the only thing that I hope would be different but you don't know what the Chiefs are going to look like next year. Like Rice and Worthy, maybe they explode. Those past defenses that the Bills had that were great, that's when you played the 50 touchdown 5,000-yard Chiefs. Right, like that's a different Mahomes. That's a different type of Mahomes, I should say. And again, I don't know that they won't get back there. I think eventually they probably will. But what you'd like to have is this version of the Chiefs, where it looks like they're a little more vulnerable than they were when you used to have a great defense. If I can play a Chiefs offense like this while having an elite secondary and an amazing pass rusher, that's how it looks different. But maybe they missed their window on that, because the Chiefs are not going to be pedestrian on offense like they've been the last 2 years forever. And if you get better and say, okay, well, now it's going to be different, guys, because, hey, we went outside DJ Reed and Javon Holland, and we hit on our first-round rookie whatever, and we went all in and signed we got Max Crosby. Okay, we got this amazing defense. Okay, but now the Chiefs figured out offense again. Crap. It offset itself, because now Rice and Worthy is an amazing duo. Sweet.
I'm at the Houston game now too, and
for which, for the Chiefs game or the Bills?
For the
Bills back in 2019.
Bills in 2019. I'm trying to find out if, in fact, every single time they have been eliminated from the playoffs, every single time, has Josh Allen been the second best quarterback in EPA per play. Think about that for a second. Josh Allen. You're a team armed with Josh Allen. And he is going to be the second best quarterback in EPA per play. The only game I haven't checked yet is 13 seconds. He was the second best quarterback in EPA per play. Nope, sorry, that's the AFC Championship game of 2020. Of course. 2021, 13 seconds. It's the last game left. Of course, he was amazing that day.
Yeah.
Amazing. Was he the second best quarterback in EPA per play? Ben Baldwin cites crunching the numbers for me, because you kind of drive home. You want to talk about a Marty Schottenheimer type coach. Marty Schottenheimer, who were his quarterbacks? He never had Josh Allen.
No.
He had Phillip Rivers. Never had Josh Allen. Okay, here we have it. 13 seconds. Allen and Mahomes were tied in EPA per play. Every other elimination game, Allen has been the second best quarterback in EPA per play. To put that another way, every time you lose, it's because a quarterback is better than Josh Allen against your defense. You could make that about Allen in the Cincinnati game if you want. You could say he didn't play his best, but you now have 5 playoff losses, 6 total. And in 5 of the 6, the other quarterback has had a better EPA per play than one of the 2 best quarterbacks in the sport. Again, that's the elimination game. Where would Allen have higher numbers in games they win? So I don't know. I think McDermott's a good head coach. I don't know when he'll deserve the benefit of the doubt in a game like they just played. They were terrible again.
Yeah.
Rapp and Benford are out. Okay.
If they ever do it right now, they beat the Chiefs, what would you bet it looks like? Would you think it's more likely right now that they just win a shootout? Doesn't that feel more likely than they ever with this coach smother that offense?
Yeah, you know what they need? They need Mahomes to put the ball on the ground a couple times, and they need to get a little lucky.
Yeah. But you don't get that. He doesn't do it.
Their body
he did it once.
The body of work over a full season looks darn close, and they meet every time, and the games are darn close. One thing is not close is the Bills are not close to making Mahomes look pedestrian in any of these games. Not once. Baltimore did that last year in the AFC Championship game.
Houston did it.
Yeah.
Rumo did it in Cincinnati. And that's the thing.
It's tough.
Mahomes doesn't often get stopped, but it does happen. It does, and that's what can be frustrating about the Chiefs is sometimes when they do all those games we just mentioned. Well, not all of them. I guess he lost the AFC Championship. They still do win these games because Spagnuolo and their defense is so good. Houston keeps Kansas City to 212 yards, and they lost anyway. The Ravens forced 6 punts on the Chiefs last year in the AFC Championship. They lost anyway. Like, that's what can be annoying about the Chiefs, but the Bills are losing anyway without that.
This year, Mahomes' EPA per play against the Bills in this game was .52. The week before against Houston was .09.
Big difference.
Mahomes, after beating the Bills last year and playing near perfect,
those numbers, if you're wondering, are often in decimals, so that might not sound like a big difference, but it is a big difference.
Yeah. I know, like EPA per play is not a sexy number. Whatever. I'm going through it, like the 5 stages. I was back to optimism on Tuesday, and here it's Wednesday, and I'm like, man, I don't know how they're ever going to stop them because their structure looks like it gets exposed.
Well, and really, the optimism. Can anyone answer my question? If they actually beat the Chiefs one of these years, what does it look like? Someone tell me what it looks like. And I don't know that you're going to get a straight answer.
Yeah.
Or an easy answer, at least.
Well, when they beat them in the regular season, what's it look like? It's 24-20. It's 26-19.
They force him into mistakes.
They get a couple.
Right? They get a couple sacks. They get an interception,
and it's a lower event game.
Yep.
They chew clock.
But anyway. I don't.
All right, I got to think of something fun to do when we get back. Hey, it's Wednesday. It's sunny. It's sunny, kind of.
I mean, yeah. The sun's out somewhere. In our view, though, it's all clouds. But, yeah.
All right, we're going to break in. Open phone lines. We'll just blast through phone calls. Did not intend to kind of go where that went, but there it is. Could have been preparing for New Orleans. Instead, I'm staring at countless EPA per play sites. Less fun. Significantly less.
We could have been so anti-Eagles these 2 weeks.
It would have been so fun.
Oh, my goodness. We could have been after them. They all hate each other.
Yep.
Although maybe all of them hating each other and being in the Super Bowl anyway is a point to get to.
803-0550 on WGR.
Live from the Just Call Jed studios. Injured? Call Jed.com. WGR Sports Radio 550. Call or text WGR at 803-0550 or post on X at WGR 550 and get connected to Jeremy and Joe now. Brought to you by Northtown Kia. Check out the 2025 Kia K4 sedan. Named finalist for the 2025 North American Car of the Year.
Changing the head coach is, I think, preposterous. This is a defense that they got to add a difference maker or two on their back end. Their back seven. Outside of Taryn's really good. They're nickel. Rasul Douglas, pretty darn good player. But they don't have a difference maker in the back end. Like Kansas City's got two of them, Justin Reed and Trent McDuffie. Outside of, two or three other really good players. Like I think Buffalo, if you're going to ask how they figure it out, they got to get a difference maker or two on their back end that's really going to help them.
It's Dan Orlovsky with the Pat McAfee Show. Jeremy White, Sneaky Joe. I'll tell you what Sneaky Joe's thinking about right now. He's considering posting a Twitter poll, which drop from a tight end was worse, Charles Clay or Dalton Kincaid. You're thinking about it.
Thinking about it. Just rewatched it. Allen's rookie year. He's like running around in the backfield, 4th and 11. They're kind of similar, right?
Mark Andrews was worse.
Mark Andrews is definitely
He had the biggest, the worst drop. It's worse than Kincaid's drop. Anyway, good morning, Jeremy and Joe. Join us on the YouTube page if you want the feed. Are you wearing, between us, are you wearing nicer clothes now that we're on camera?
A little bit.
Me too.
I would
me
say
too.
These are clothes that I would wear into work, but there might be a day or two a week where I'm just like, whatever. I'm just gonna wear, joggers and and whatever hoodie I can grab.
It's gonna look like pajamas.
And now I'm like, all right, I mean, put a little effort in.
Me too.
At least
I'll throw a collar on.
Yeah. Although off season's long, we'll see. Maybe there'll be a day.
Right. I mean, we're not exactly wearing shirts and ties, so.
No, I'm wearing golf joggers. I don't even know what I would call this that I'm wearing right now. It's like a it's not quite a cardigan. It's definitely not a cardigan.
No, cardigan.
It's a zipper. So
I was gonna say cardigans by rule can't have zippers. I think that's
got to be buttons.
I'm gonna go with that.
There's no zipper cardigans.
No, that feels like it can't be a zip. No, cardigans don't have zippers.
no such thing as a zip up cardigan.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. If I search zip up cardigan, what's going to come up?
Something that's not a cardigan. You just search cardigan, it can't have a zipper. That's what I'm saying is the rule.
Okay. You're right. The things that come up are not they're not called
cardigans.
It's not being called a cardigan, I guess.
Pull over.
They're being called sweaters.
No, it's a cardigan, but thanks for noticing. CJ in Chicago. Hey, CJ. You might not know that reference. It's okay.
I didn't know it.
What's up, CJ?
Hey, guys. Long time listener, first time caller. I really appreciate you taking the call. I had some thoughts about that last drive and want to see what you guys think. So if the Chiefs had scored a touchdown, do you think the Bills would approach that last drive differently? The reason being is that I feel like one thing that's different between like Brady and Mahomes and some of the other quarterbacks that we mentioned, I feel like their approach to those game-winning drives, game-time drives, like they have like 1A and 1B, meaning that the tendency or the approach to score the touchdown is just as important as moving the sticks and getting first downs. And I feel like that's maybe a little bit of a difference between them and some of the other quarterbacks. What are your thoughts?
You're saying like in those moments, they're more likely to take the free yards, 8 yards here, 6 yards there, and you think Josh is maybe going for a little too much?
Yeah, like with Mahomes, like their priority. I mean, they want to score, obviously, but just as important as scoring is make sure we get the first down, make sure we always we get good positive plays, so we're not at like 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. I mean they'll still pick it up, but what are your thoughts?
Thanks, CJ. I like this point because I don't know if we had this off the air or who I was talking about this with a friend that Allen fit into this offense really well. Joe Brady got through to him, got him to take the easy button throws, got him to take the throws to running backs, got him to throw screens. They moved the chains, and his efficiency was way high. And last year, when Brady took over, it was about Kincaid and Shakir, and everything was about efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens to a quarterback like Allen, maybe, in a game-winning drive scenario? Do you maybe revert to who you are, which is the guy that wants to wing it, man? I want to rip that ball. And last year against the Chiefs, again, this is just guessing. So I'm doing my best here. We're always trying to get into Allen's head. I've referred to a lot of what they do on offense as the battle for Allen's soul. We had a caller earlier say, I mentioned hero mode, and I felt like the last 2 playoff losses, there's not been any hero mode. Like, they take it out of him in these spots, and he gets one drive to try to get it there. And think about last year. Another good example. Last year, final drive to try and win it, the Diggs drop. That is a heave.
It's a great throw.
It is
It's down the field, and yeah.
It is. And you know what else it probably is? Isn't that what he wants? He wants the big chunks. I don't think he's ever going to not want the big chunks. Think about some of the highlight plays this year. You had running backs catching balls 50 yards downfield.
Yeah.
Because I just think at his core, in his soul, what does he want? He wants to rip the ball down the field. And in the playoff game last year, what did he do? He went for Shakir. Diggs is open over the middle. I want Shakir. I want the touchdown. Didn't get it. Okay, kick misses. This one, many people have said on the film, why didn't he just turn and throw to Shakir here? The play, orbit motion, how it got set up. I mean, it might be a tough play, but he's the hero. Throw it to Shakir. Kurt Warner said, throw it to Shakir. What does he do? I think I got a better one. Down the field. It's part of the reason that the wide receiver train runs and we don't have a tight end train. How many throws down the field did you see to Kincaid and Knox? You see them all the time. They miss. I think the quarterback in his bones, in his DNA, is a guy that wants to rip it. And he's asked quite often, even on the final drive and the drive before that, to throw screens and to throw to running backs and to throw dump-offs. And those are important elements of your game, but his numbers were way down. I don't think he's a stat hog. I just think I don't know. Does any of this make sense? Any of it sound right?
Yeah.
Is anybody out there kind of, we're just guessing, trying to get inside his head. Does anybody else think that about him?
I mean, he did spend the whole year really keeping that under control, right?
Yeah, that's what, he deserves credit for that, and so does Brady.
Part of that, though, too, was their personnel. Like, it might be harder for him to want to chuck it downfield when he does not have anybody that gets open down the field.
This was another part of the conversation. Maybe you and I did talk about it or joked about it. Why didn't they draft Xavier Worthy? Because Xavier Worthy would have been running 50 yards down the field, and Josh would have said, I got to throw it to that guy. I want that every time.
Yeah. I gotta find a number, too, because there's probably somebody out there thinking, well, defenses don't want him to do that, right? Defenses are trying to take away the big play from him. And I saw a chart before the game on Sunday that broke down both offensively and defensively, like what these teams, Bills and Chiefs, what they do on defense, what they do on offense, and then what they normally see. And the amount in which the Bills saw 2 high safety shell this year, which is, that's we're not going to let you throw it down the field. We're just not going to let you do it. The Bills, alarmingly, were like bottom of that list. I think they were bottom. I want to get the exact number that they were, but they did not see 2 high safety shell nearly as much as you would think this year. And that probably is teams thinking, well, all right, you're running it, and what do I got to do? I got to cover. What do I have to ask my corners to do? They got to cover Mac Hollins down the field. I can do that. Yeah. I don't need 2. I don't need 2.
And he still.
I don't need 2 safeties to do that.
And he still had his wins, and Allen still made it a great offense because he's obviously great.
Maybe that's how you convince the Bills to go get speed, go get a receiver. Hey, they didn't play 2 high safety against you. They thought you were running the ball. You want to have a better run game? Challenge those safeties. Make them fear you down the field because then everybody backs up again. This year, I don't think it happened as much as they thought it would.
Yeah, 803-0550, 1-888-550-2550. Jeremy and Joe on WGR.
WGR Sports Radio 550, 2020 Sports.
Extendo Sports.
I just received an email from Jimmy Shapiro of Bet Online. Would you like to try to guess the top 5 fan bases that claim to be boycotting the Super Bowl?
Ooh, okay.
This is based on the number of boycott the Super Bowl tweets.
Okay. Bills.
Number 1.
Yeah, that makes sense. Ravens.
Number 2.
How about the Texans?
No.
Just thinking teams that the Chiefs beat. How about the Commanders?
No.
The Bengals?
No.
I was just thinking they lost at the end.
Yep.
Raiders.
No.
New England.
Nope.
Who's mad? Who's mad at who's in the Super Bowl? Or who's upset that their season ended the way it did? The Lions.
3.
Yeah.
And from there, it's kind of random. The Browns are 4th, and the Vikings are 5th.
The Browns are 4th.
Yeah. According to this...
what are they going to boycott? Every Super Bowl?
Would you care to guess the 2 teams that finished in 31st and 32nd in likelihood to boycott the Super Bowl?
Eagles and Chiefs.
That's correct.
Yeah, that makes sense.
582 Eagles fans have said they're going to boycott the Super Bowl, and 347 Chiefs fans.
Who are those 800 people?
I don't know.
What are they?
Maybe it's an Eagles fan that's convinced they're going to lose anyway because the officials are going to fix it.
He's mad. He's just so upset about A.J. Brown reading on the sidelines. He couldn't possibly get behind a team that allows that type of behavior.
How about the 347 Chiefs fans that have tweeted boycott the Super Bowl?
Maybe they are. Yeah, this is kind of boring at this point. It's the same thing. I don't need to watch. What do I need to watch? They're going to win.
Yep. Boycott the Super Bowl.
Maybe they're the 300 Chiefs fans that do believe that the refs are in on it.
And
they're like, I don't want it this way.
Yeah, this is shady.
I don't want it this way.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
is there any chance you'll boycott the Super Bowl?
No, none. None.
I'd say there's like a 2% chance. Have you ever missed a Super Bowl?
I fell asleep at halftime of one.
Was that with the Broncos and Seahawks when it was like 40-10?
That was Colts Saints.
Okay. You missed the
pick 6?
Oh, that's the surprise onside kick,
I think
right?
so, yeah.
Wow.
I fell asleep at halftime.
Fell asleep for that. I don't think I've missed a Super Bowl since 2001. Which is the first Super Bowl that I remember. I don't even know if I was watching before that.
Well, that's it for us. The extra point show's coming up.
I had forgotten on the was it the 2-point conversion? I hadn't seen this replay since Sunday. Allen on the sneak, and he gets held up, and he sees Samuel behind him. He just kind of throws the ball to him.
Yeah.
Someone said, "Oh, there's no downside." I'm like, "Well, the downside is a Chief player picks it up, runs it back, and it's 2 points for them."
That's right. We forgot
He just like loosely. I'm just gonna throw the ball backwards towards Samuel.
That's right. There was a lateral in this game that we forgot about.
There was. Yeah.
They tried to sneak him in. Yeah, short yardage, not great.
They took a point off the board. Remember, they kicked the extra point.
That they did.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, happy Wednesday. We're back tomorrow. We're rescheduling Joe Marino. He's probably going to join us tomorrow. We had a mix-up today. So Joe Marino, Lockdown Bills podcast on what to do moving forward. And we'll keep moving forward and all that. Sabres win last night. Multiple hat tricks. One for J.G. Paterka, one for Tage Thompson. That was fun. We're back tomorrow at 6 here on WGR.